beautiful sun-soaked skies of Daytona Beach for the 4th Super Speedway race of the season, and a beautiful race in store, where tonight the KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to coverage of the 14th installment of the Season 2 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season and its second visit to the Daytona International Speedway. Welcome to the Firecracker 312. As we bring you the coverage from beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida, glad to have you along with us for the ride in our final Super Speedway affair of the regular season, where hopefully alongside Francisco Bacalhau very soon in the broadcast booth, I am Kenneth Bueno. Many races have gone by. We continue to track down those drivers that will make the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series chase for 2026. Although right now, the answer is still a little bit shy of who's going to be getting in and who is going to be the first drivers out. We've decided over the last few who have survived many of the 2-mile-plus racetracks. We're back at a 2-mile-plus racetrack tonight, this time on the high banks of Daytona. The second visit here after it opened the season earlier in mid-February. So it's been a little while. We've got a lot to talk about. And of course, many things to discuss when the points are considered in the factor. So here's a look at our 2026 schedule, what is upcoming, where we're at now, and where we've been on the journey to the championship for Season 2 in this year. Daytona being, again, the final Super Speedway race of the regular season. We've got one more, the second visit to Talladega, before we close out the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series chase and crown a champion at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. But at least for now, we've got a few dozen tracks in the mix as well. A lot of big-time ovals from Dega a few weeks back, Michigan, Pocono, and then we went short track racing at Phoenix a few weeks ago before hitting up the World Center of Racing tonight. We'll go road course racing for just the one time this season in wine country at Sonoma, California, before heading off to the Brickyard at Indianapolis for what's going to be our third of 5 Noble 5 races for a cash prize. We'll go out to New Hampshire, Nashville, and Richmond, the short track in the Commonwealth of Virginia that'll close out the regular season and bring us the official decision of who is in and who is out when it comes to fighting for a Droppin the Hammah Cup Series championship. Well, just a few weeks ago, we were out in the desert, Phoenix, Arizona, for the Back Out 225, and a blistering start for Cedric Hunter. Stepped out in front, lots of great racing. Jesse Whittington among those that were getting scurried in the middle of the pack. Lots of 3 and 2 wide action. One big surprise from a short track that we really haven't seen all season long, a flag-to-flag affair on a track that's less than 1.5 miles. Of course, we had Auto Club Speedway being a flag-to-flag decider. Many clean races this season, but it was all about just, of course, trying to keep it clean and under the night sky in Avondale, Arizona. It was a beautiful night to go racing. There's Jaden Porter catching up to the field, the driver who experienced some absences over the last few weeks, making his return to the series. And, of course, the first round of green flag pit stops. Cedric Hunter being one of those first in. He would elect the pure overcut strategy, while drivers like Warren Kyle Keith, aggressive, very fast to catch up to Hunter, was just off-put on the strategy. Severe undercut for Kyle Keith, and he was just sent back. Hunter would take the lead. And then a huge scare in turn 1. Dana Shepard going hard into the outside wall despite the trouble and despite some of that damage for Warren Kyle Keith's car. We remained under the green flag. Cedric Hunter went away, pulled away, and ends up with his 6th victory of the 2026 season, and most importantly, 3rd in a row. First driver still since Lawson Peel to win more than 3 consecutive races or do that feat. He won 4 consecutive affairs back in the playoffs of Season 1 that took him all the way to the Championship 4. So while Hunter continues his winning ways, he continues his ascension up the leaderboard, and now a high of the season, 2nd place, right behind Brandon Banks at 457. Banks continues to be that staple driver to look forward to, and a bunch of shifts throughout the top 5. Jaden Porter, we saw him drop back to 5th. As a result of some of the shaky weeks he's had not in action in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, he's back in action tonight, so a chance for him to regain some points. Garrett Walden, the highest running rookie of them all, is running right in 3rd, so a very promising standout for the driver of the 43. He's been an impressive run this season out of all the yellow striped drivers that have been running for their first time in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series field. But of course, our eyes sway to the cut line, now 6 points separating Alex Muscarella, the last driver in, and Justin Earp for SKM Racing, a pair of good weeks, and now is the first driver out. We had a significantly large gap at around 30-plus points around that cut line. Now it seems to be just a little bit slimmer this time around, so a track like Daytona will shake things up dramatically. And of course, you watch all the way at the bottom, 20, Timothy Stubblefield in that 20th spot. As that continues to glow red, that continues to show us those drivers who over time will be mathematically ineligible to make it to the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series playoffs this year. Well, let's talk to one of those drivers who is a standout in the top 5 for rookie standings. And we're now joined by the driver of the 43, Garrett Walden. Garrett, what a season it's been so far. Regular campaign is starting to come to a close for you, and it's a super speedway once again here at Daytona. What do you try and keep in mind to try and get your first win in your career and also keep that momentum up high to have the top 3 in the standings locked up?
Honestly, I think it's just kind of staying consistent. That's a big thing every week for me is just consistency is key. I kind of equate myself to a 2003 Matt Kenseth, if we're being 100% honest here, is that, yeah, wins are great, but consistency on every week, top 10, top 5s, that'll see you there to the end. So for me, it's just staying consistent like I have been, staying those top 10s and top 5s and just constantly being in the running. The wins will come, but I think for me, just as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, that's just my goal. Every week, come in top 10, run great. And so far, that's what I've accomplished.
One of those few rookie standouts here in this 2026 season. And of course, you have Charles Stevens, Jesse Whittington, some of your good friends and teammates that have helped you along the way. What have perhaps their experience either given you over the course of your career so far, or maybe things you've learned yourself over this series to be more competitive week in and week out as the year progresses?
Honestly, with Jesse especially, I haven't raced with Charles a whole lot before all this, before this league. Jesse was the one I raced with in another league prior to this. And I think a lot of it was just us just giving each other feedback like, hey, this works for me. Try this out. Maybe try this brake package out because this works better for me in this. Or, hey, I run it this way. I run the bottom here. You kind of save that there. I think a lot of it's just been the feedback between us and kind of bouncing off ideas of whenever we have a problem to tackle, depending on the track. Be like, well, I tackle it this way. Oh, wow, you're actually really better at this than I am. Maybe I should see how you tackle it. And the difference is always like help the two of us and Charles too, because he'll get that feedback from us and go, hey, well, let me go try it, your way and see if it helps me. So I think it's just been great feedback between us, giving each other good pointers and like, hey, I tackle this differently. Just kind of like good feedback between teams of how, we set up our ways or how we even practice sometimes some tracks. But I think just that good communication has helped us forward.
Well, Garrett, we saw you running qualifying laps, and during this interview, you qualified 4th right now. So it looks pretty good for you as it stands. In all seriousness, though, great luck here tonight from Daytona. We wish you the best, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's Garrett Walden, driver of the number 43, highest running rookie in standing. Something impressive for the driver of this car, who, of course, captured many top 10s and top 5s throughout his short but very successful Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series career. Well, we look at super speedways and we look at usually chaos, but we've seen many different winners along the way. And of course, we have to start with the season opener here at the World Center of Racing. Big crash out of turn 2 back straightaway, setting up a late race restart. And it's the Valvoline Chevrolet, Brandon Banks, who so far has held on to the points lead, but to this day is his only win of the 2026 season, holding off a flurry of cars from all around him in the rearview mirror, half blocking, sending the blocks down the main straightaway, and on the tribal, getting the start-finish line first, winning his first race of the season, second career Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series win at the time for Brandon Banks. He's still winning, or looking for that second victory this year. So we were at Daytona then in the daylight, and then our second super speedway affair took us to a rather unique super speedway track at Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta, Georgia, where Steven Stempien put on a clinic. 196 laps led for the driver out of Methuen, Massachusetts, leading the field from flag to flag for the most part as they crashed behind him, sailed across for his first win of the season, and of course giving credit to many who helped him along the way, and Stempien being put in as one of the most dominant efforts we've seen in a single race by any Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series driver. He, of course, still looks for a win here at Daytona despite being close to the marker several times in his career. And our last super speedway affair was a shocker in Dega, Birmingham, Alabama, not too far from it, where Jaden Porter led the field to the final green flag restart, but it was the magical work of DEP Racing. In just their first 5 starts, less than that, Jamal Pugh, pink and yellow car right behind Porter on the back straightaway, gets a push from his teammate Dana Shepard, runs off turn 4, look to the inside, and it was all magic from there. Jamal Pugh getting his first career drop in the Hammah Cup Series win. He's in the field tonight trying to go back-to-back as he makes it stand. It's been a wonderful route to the super speedways this year. We only have one more after this one from Daytona is complete. So it should be another fantastic effort tonight and possibly another chance for a shocker to be right in the mix as well. So we could watch that happen. However, with the way Cedric Hunter has run this season, maybe a chance for him to go 4 in a row and continue what has been a very successful campaign so far. Only 6 different winners over the course of the year. Cedric, of course, taking many of those checkered flags over the course of the campaign, and so we'll just keep a look on what happens as things move forward here tonight. Well, we were just in Phoenix, Arizona just a few weeks ago for some short track racing. Why don't we continue the memories from the desert track and the 1-miler with tonight's KBRN Moment in Time from a very pivotal and very dramatic 2020 iRacing Bundren Lawn Care Series finale. Welcome to today's KBRN Moment in Time. This moment brings us back to the championship finale of the Season 1 iRacing Bundren Lawn Care Series. Pace car will be off of pit road. We will go championship racing here in the desert. Green flag is out. Blaze McKinney will lead them all down. This finale from the virtual Phoenix Raceway featured Parker White, Blaze McKinney, Nick Miller, and Glenn Bundren in the battle for the championship. McKinney, who had the most dominant season of the bunch, led the field early with SPG Esports driver Aaron Mulrooney behind him. As typical with a lot of races at the virtual Phoenix Raceway, many quick yellows came out as drivers struggled to handle the rear grip of these Gen 6 NASCAR Cup Series cars. As the race continued, the tone up at the front never really changed, as McKinney led up in the front of the championship, while new up-and-comer Parker White tried to give him his best shot, as they both looked to get around Mulrooney for the lead. And then, after a Brady Wallerman spill at the exit of turn 4, we got what might be one of the most dramatic championship restarts in KBRN history. We'll see who does. Parker White got a beautiful jump on the 2 of Aaron Mulrooney. There's contact. The 95 is around. Mulrooney got into him. Caution is out once again. And just like that, in a dramatic turn of events, Blaze McKinney would hold on right behind the eventual winner, Cole Williams, who took his first career Bundren Lawn Care Series win, while McKinney hoisted the trophy for the first time in his career. While there aren't many Phoenix Championship races in KBRN's history over the years, this stands as one of the all-time classics in championship racing on the network. And that's today's KBRN Moment in Time. Great moment in time from Phoenix, Arizona, and man, what a race that was. A long time ago already to the day, 6 years since the iRacing Bundren Lawn Care Series broadcasted right here on the KBueno Racing Network came to a close in Phoenix, and Blaze McKinney ending up the champion. But of course, the drama between Aaron Mulrooney and Parker White, almost crazy to think that now Parker White, all these years later, an eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion from 2024, back then scrapping for titles on a series broadcasted right here. So pretty cool memories from Phoenix, although we didn't get to rekindle some of those when we were in Phoenix a few weeks ago. Still, memories are memories, and they're great to go back to every now and then, especially when they have moments as highly packed as those, and we may have one of those moments here tonight from Daytona, so there could very well be a similar moment in the cards, and possibly a big one along the way. Let's get a look at our track map presented by Google Earth. Of course, our images provided there. 2.5 miles here in beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida, right next to the Daytona International Airport. Daytona Beach right behind on the runway. A gorgeous track opened back in 1959. And of course, if you're a NASCAR fan, no real introduction needed. And also, if you're a sports car fan, Rolex 24, Daytona 500, also hosts a bit of motocross. You can name it all. Daytona has probably had a helping hand in hosting some of the biggest events in motorsports and will be the site of our race tonight. Second time we are here at the World Center of Racing. Of course, we started the year right here at the 2.5 miler with the 18 degrees of banking in that main trioval and the 31 degrees of banking in the corners. All right, well, let's get you ready. Tracks side is ready. Drivers are ready. Let's bring you tonight's starting grid for the 14th race of the 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season and our Firecracker 312 here from Daytona Beach, Florida, where it is career pole number 8 for the Massachusetts driver, Steven Stempien, trying to search for his second superspeedway victory of the year. A 51.389 is more than enough to get him the front row starting spot. Kip Easley on the outside for Drinkin' Bros Racing, trying to have it be Daytona swept by DBR, as his teammate Brandon Banks won in the season opener earlier this year. Those two will be the first to see the green flag in row number 1. Stephen Harlow for the Droppin the Hammah team, his Chevrolet behind his teammate. Back in third, Brandon Banks, the defending Daytona winner, trying to capture his second W of the season. The South Carolina driver lines up on the outside in fourth position. Daniel Holdcroft, a very strong drive in practice, leads him to a 5th place starting spot. In qualifying, Alex Muscarella in the 48. His Chevrolet lines up on the outside in position number 6. Back in row number 4 is where you'll find the 6-time winner this season in Cedric Hunter, still looking for a super speedway win and possibly his 7th victory of the year, which would make it 4 in a row. With James Kunkel on the outside, very strong super speedway driver, led some laps at the Echo Park Speedway a few weeks ago. Justin Erb in the number 20 is back in 9th place. Garrett Walden 3rd in rookie standings and overall standings going into tonight. The driver of the 43 is outside to cap off the top 10. Jamal Pugh, the Talladega Superspeedway winner from not that long ago, is trying to strike gold once again for DEP Racing. He's 11th. Zach Wilson, a big-time welcome to Zach Wilson, Sunoco Cup Series legend. He's back in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series field. Well, he's in it for the first time. Wilson is on the outside in 12th position. Row 7 will feature the 23 of Charles Van Schaik in 13th, and Warren Kyle Keith second to the gun at Phoenix a few weeks ago. He's back in 14th place. Top 15 goes to Jesse Whittington for Cypress Racing Academy and Timothy Stubblefield, who won the opening race here at Daytona back in season number 1. Been a long time since Stubblefield has tasted Droppin the Hammah victory lane. He'll try to do so again from the 16th starting spot on the grid. A big welcome as well to Justin Hendry. Ran a bunch of times in the Sunoco Cup Series, so a welcome to the driver of the 85. He is row 9 and 17th. Chuck Stevens, another Cypress Racing Academy Chevrolet. He's on the outside in 18th place. Parker Bland is the last driver to set a time in qualifying. She's on the inside of row number 10. And Jaden Porter having to grab a brand new wheel, but of course trying to regain some spots in the point standings. The Louisville, Kentucky native is the first driver without a qualifying time on the outskirts in top 20 position. David Duran, the rookie, is 21st. Brad Fulham, the Canadian driver in the 19, is 22nd. 23rd goes to Casey Knighton in his number 28 car, with Dana Shepard was a big-time helper in getting Jamal Pugh to the victory at Talladega not that long ago. He'll try to have some heroics from 24th on the exit of row 12. And row 13, Kevin Roy, shotgun of the field, the number 22 car, starts in 25th place. Well, as we're under pacing here with the iRacing official pace car leading us through the way, let's bring in our second member of the broadcast team tonight, Francisco Bacallao. Francisco, it's good to have you. It's been a few weeks. We had a week off not that long ago, July 4th coming up next week, so we won't be racing on Sunday. But what a way to set off the American Spirit with a Firecracker 312. Daytona back on the schedule under the lights. It's going to be a good one.
Oh yeah, happy to be here from the World Center of Racing, Kenneth. This track under the lights is historic for being ran close to around the 4th of July weekend, and what a better way to have some Daytona racing here on America's 250th birthday alongside you, which this is our first time this season being in the same booth for a super speedway event. I covered the Daytona and Talladega races, you being at the Echo Park Speedway, so finally we get to have each other's company for one of these races. We've had fantastic super speedway races, and I think tonight will be another one of those situations. Big key for tonight's race is that setup that they have, which is very similar to what they used at Talladega. It has the reduced horsepower and some reduced weight to it, but at the same time the setup itself is a little bit more draggier, or rather lower to the ground. It scrapes the ground a little bit, so it's all in an effort to try and generate better runs, if you will, within the draft, and at the same time try to reduce some of that fuel mileage game we tend to see. But these drivers, Kenneth, they always find a way to make it about fuel mileage.
They always try their best. Good to not be alone for the first time, you and I, having a broadcast booth here for a super speedway race as we look at our skmcars.com race analysis. 125 laps from Daytona Beach, Florida, equates to about 312.5 miles, 502.8 kilometers. It is a rather long race here from Daytona, a little more than what is the halfway mark of what is the Daytona 500 at 100 laps time, so it should be a lengthy race, but understanding the power output and the setup changes, that equates to 88 pounds off of this heavy stock car, but you do limit the power to 93.5%, so there is a bit of a equalization in that sense. Drivers and the teams have been working to balance out these setups and make them as racy as they can and make sure that they can handle well in traffic after the feedback from Talladega Superspeedway, where a lot of drivers complain about the level of racing there and how the car fell behind the wheel with the setup. So should be a testing ground open to the doors of the drivers as they take on Daytona for the second time this year. It is Steven Stepien looking for his second Superspeedway victory of the year. Kip Easley looking for his first, and a pair of bow tie Chevrolets that'll bring us to the starting line for the very first lap here at Daytona Beach, Florida. Firecracker 312, let's get it on from Daytona. Green flag in the air.
And as you see right there, as the field works their way down the back straightaway, still getting up to speed proper. Neither lane has an advantage on the initial start of the race. Stepien, the pole sitter, took the bottom easily on the outside. A teammate of his with another teammate of themselves in PPR with Brandon Banks, but only now with Steven Stepien's own help teammate. He takes the lead, and he's going to lead lap number 1. Familiar place for Steven Stepien to be out front of a super speedway race.
At 196 laps at Echo Park Speedway, in a race that was very hard to find track position, but Stepien made the most of it, even through some of those late race restarts, and he's got his teammate in tow right behind. That was pretty much the advantage, presumably, as we drop the green flag, having both of those drop in the Hammah Team Chevrolets on the bottom of row number 1 and row number 2. They help each other out, set the rhythm for the first few laps here at Daytona, but DBR has their teammates hooked up on the high side. Brandon Banks has found the rear bumper of Easley's car. The teammates work together on the top shelf, but they cannot get around. Stepien remains in front by at least a car length and a half, coming back off turn 4.
And you see that the outside fell back on this lap, but they're still kind of holding strong. They're going to have a numbers game, and how that outside lane performs is very much dependent on how the leader of the line drives the racetrack. They have to be a little bit aggressive to try and side draft the cars on the inside, stay nose to tail. You see Easley and Banks not exactly doing that all too well, and it's really hurting them. They kind of fell back a little bit more. They're kind of side by side around the 6th position, and all in an effort, at least for those front cars, just run single file. This race is 125 laps, and if we're being very honest, Kenneth, not every single one of them is probably laps where the drivers are looking to go side by side and racing. It tends to get a little bit dull, especially in the early stages, but that's all in an effort to try and take care of your race car, take care of your equipment, make sure that you have something to fight with on lap 125 before you're out of the race on lap 25.
Well, telemetry tells us that right now, if we stay green, we go 1 hour and 43 minutes for this race. But again, that's optimistic. That is assuming every lap tonight will be 1 under green, and not to say that these drivers can't do it. They've done it a few times this year, not on super speedways, but they did it at Auto Club Speedway. Phoenix, our last race, was a flag-to-flag affair, and you and I were surprised to not see a single yellow flag thrown throughout the night. So there could be a chance where the drivers do the same thing here in this race. However, you always have to keep your mind open. There could be a crash at any moment tonight. Boy, huge drop-off for those Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets that started on the front end of this field from the high side. They have not found ground. The 27 of Easley has dropped back significantly, and everyone on the high side has either kept in line and have fallen back or have now migrated to the double yellow line at the inside. Francisco, what's going on here? Is this a deliberate attempt to just hang back in the field and take care of the race car, or is this just a seeming issue for the drivers on the high side? They cannot find momentum as we see it.
I think the first 2 laps was definitely them trying to fight to stay at the front of the field, but they just didn't really have enough proper momentum and enough cars, I guess, to really keep up the pace. You see the inside, just how much better they've been able to stay aligned. That's the 85 of Justin Hendry. We haven't seen his name called up in a while. Almost won the season 1 opening race here just over a year ago, and he's trying to make some redemption off of that race. He now leads the outside line. At this point, they're trying to do something different. Instead of just riding around on the bottom, give it about 10 laps. If we see that there's no real momentum found there, we may end up going back to single file racing. But if there's anything I've seen out of these super speedway races, at least their first couple laps of the initial start of the race, is that they try to go too wide for a bit. They try to settle into a track position, get some of those jitters out of the way, and if they're unable to, they'll get single file, and that's how they'll run for a good portion of the night.
So Hendrick continues to try and breathe some life into this outside group that is now 6 cars long, with Brad Fulham at the very back end of that, light blue Chevrolet, the Wendy's sponsored car, while the leaders continue to hold on front. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, almost all Chevrolets, but then, well, half of it Chevrolets and a Ford and a Toyota. Daniel Holtcroft there in third, and there's that pink bright car of Cedric Hunter, who has pretty much made himself very familiar with the front of this field, a now 6-time winner this season, a 7-time winner over the course of his career, and trying to search for a record-setting 4th race win in a row. Again, we mentioned Lawson Field, the only other driver to do such a thing in season 1, where he won 9 races en route to the championship finale. Didn't win the title, but still set a marker in Droppin the Hammah Cup Series history that at the moment is sure to be either matched or beaten by Cedric Hunter in the way that he's run this season tonight. He is back in second, now third, rather in points, second in points, third to Garrett Walden. Of course, all of them chasing Brandon Banks, who has been the consistent marker to beat here in 2026. Well, Steven knows a thing or two, Francisco, about leading laps. Again, we mentioned that Echo Park Speedway race where he led a bulk of it. He dominated that race from start to finish. And many of that was from the outward track position that he had at the front, but also some of the help he had from behind. We get a look on board with the 88 car back to turn 1.
Yeah, his teammates, the Droppin the Hammah Racing team, they worked really well together in that Echo Park Speedway race, and Stempian basically tried to go out there with the mission of leading every lap, but I mean, at least he got the win in the end of the night. He's been super fast on these other super speedways, the more traditional ones of Daytona and Talladega, but just has not gotten victory that I'm sure he's been looking forward to capturing, whether it's been getting involved in an accident or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This 88 machine is fast, it's always leading laps, and it's always in contention. It just hasn't really quite been there when it's mattered most for the checkered flag, but you see he's got a little bit of a patriotic scheme going on. A lot of these drivers as well, if you notice, like Stephen Harlow has on his front windshield, they have these American banners both on the windshield and the rear spoilers. They have an American flag on the spoilers as well, a little bit more prevalent here with the fact that the spoilers are a little bit bigger, so it's easier to point out. All of that is a league effort to commemorate America's 250th anniversary here in the month of June and July, supplied by the league admin. And then there's that one driver where you might not see anything American. You'll actually see Cedric Hunter decided to go his own way, and he is a Canadian, to support the Canada flag on both the windshield and the rear spoiler. And how about Canada today, Kenneth? They had a huge opportunity to win their round of 32 game, and they did it in the 92nd minute against South Africa to move on to the round of 16.
Yeah, it was huge. First knockout game, the only one on this Sunday afternoon in the FIFA World Cup, and Canada hoping to move on, as well as the other host nations, Mexico and the U.S., hoping to make it through their respective knockout rounds in the round of 32. But there's Hunter's look, the Canadian banner on the top end, and the rear spoiler, which you can actually see more of it now because we do have that super speedway package. A big old spoiler, as Dale Jr. would call it, with a word that I'm missing out on purpose here, but nonetheless, Hunter running in the top 5. And again, none of these drivers on the bottom of the racetrack have escaped that double yellow line. Of course, they understand no drivers on the high side, no real momentum to be gained up there, so not really a chance, especially early on through lap number 10, to consider an effort down pit road. But what I am noticing, Francisco, a lot more separation from the front to the back of this field. There is a pretty sizable gap there between Jesse Whittington and Garrett Walden running 7th and 8th. Now, those are teammates at the Cypress Racing Academy, those two good friends, and Garrett telling me how him and Chuck Stevens, Jesse and Chuck Stevens, have taught him some lessons to be learned on the racetrack as he's gone through this year. And of course, have helped him try to become a better driver. And those teammates have worked together to find some success on the racetrack, but the outside is gone. Brandon Banks has maintained his place with Kip easily right in front. However, everyone else at the back, they're starting to thin out from the front of this field. So this power and weight package now considerably taking its toll, and the drivers really feeling the effects of that. Here comes Warren Kyle Keith, charge to the outside. Help from Justin Hendry getting them into the top 15.
Yeah, they were still pretty side by side through the top 10, and then the line decided to take Justin Hendry 3 wide, and that kind of killed the momentum, really. The second they went 3 wide, they just went all the way to the back and went basically single file until Hendry and Keith now just jumped up to the high side, and those are just those 2 cars, which that's not going to get its way towards the front of the field with it being just 2 cars. So we'll see if they try to find themselves to the bottom. Looks like Keith will do so in front of Kunkel. Could expect to see that 85 machine try to duck down low, maybe behind Brandon Banks or at the tail end of this line. And just like that, it's only taken 12 laps, Kenneth, for the entire field. Never mind, he goes back to the outside, does Warren Kyle Keith now with Kunkel behind him to try and help him out in this race. You see Muscarella on the inside there. Thought about him peeking up for a moment, and I think we'll see something like this. Warren Kyle Keith, we know he's aggressive, we know he doesn't like sitting around, but at the same time, if nobody's really going with you and you're at a threat of going to the very back of this pack, how often do you continue to try to make that move up top if everybody's just trying to hold on for now, knowing it's lap 13?
Yeah, they're still trying to be aggressive. We know that Warren Kyle Keith can turn up the aggression knob very early on in races like these. Had a very strong car pair of weeks ago at Avondale, Arizona, picked up a second-place finish after starting 4th, and that was his best finish since Kansas in early May, where he finished in 3rd place after starting in 14th on a very, what's been kind of successful but semi-rocky season for the St. Augustine, Florida native. And the driver right behind him, teammate for SKM in that red, white, and blue Stars and Stripes Ford Mustang, that's James Kunkel, who did try and find a way to lead some laps at Echo Park Speedway and was one of those pure drivers running up at the top of the speedway at the time, in a race where many drivers expressed their frustrations about how hard it was to make up track position on the outside of the racetrack under these nighttime cool track conditions. And so Kunkel, who was a big proponent of moving up to the high side, saying, hey, let's go, let's make this fun, let's try and race up at the front of the field, attempting there with Warren Kyle Keith. Attempt number 1 is a fail. Attempt number 2, they pick up Justin Hendry there. 3 cars on the back straightaway, looking for an entryway and at least find some more patrons here in the middle of the first 15 laps of tonight's affair from Daytona and this Firecracker 312. So everyone considerably running single file. We know that the fuel is going to be somewhat of a talking stage now that we do see what this race is looking like. And at a super speedway, 90% fuel, Francisco, how different does that feel behind the wheel? I know you've tested 100, I know you've done 75, which is kind of the consensus for plenty of NASCAR stock car leagues on iRacing, but you kind of strike the middle of that 90% fuel as the leaders, Stepien and Harlow and Holdcroft, will take the outside of the racetrack, lead some drivers on. Justin Erb is going to be the first driver to the bottom. Looks like Cedric Hunter takes a look to the inside, and we've got an interesting race for the lead as the Droppin the Hammah Chevrolet of Harlow gets out of line. Hunter steps up to the high side, and here comes Erb for the lead.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's all about. The move to the outside, the way they did it, and that's going to bring Warren Kyle Keith up there. He's got a huge run. He's actually thought about going for the middle. Kunkel is going to take the middle, almost makes contact with the 84 of Chuck Stevens as they all kind of bunch up back there from about 6th place. And that's how quick it happens. As soon as you move a car to a different lane, there's so much drag that the car produces that everybody behind gets a huge run. And Stephen Harlow, I guess he just lost a lot of momentum. It stacked up the rest of that outside lane just like that. That move up to the high side, incredibly questionable, Kenneth. I'm not exactly sure why they did that. It definitely cost them track position.
Look there on the left side of your screen. What's going on in the middle of that group, 3 wide in the pack? And yeah, rather odd decision there for Stepien and Harlow, but could that have been because they were possibly wasting more fuel at the front? We know Stepien has led a bulk of the laps here tonight through 16, and now coming to lap 17. Not sure if that was a deliberate decision. Didn't look like there were any significant problems for them, but they moved up high. Here comes Keith through the middle, and now it's James Kunkel, the man up high, trying to make something work as Erb takes the lead for the first time from Daytona, and the outside line has a bit of life to the super stretch.
Oh, look at this run that they got. They have a huge push down the back straightaway. Does Kunkel with Warren Kyle Keith. They're going to get side by side for the lead here. They'll even take it away into 3.
And the first time a lead change happens in turn 3, and it's James Kunkel to the front. Takes the inside. No help from Erb. Here comes Keith with a push from Justin Hendry behind. Daniel Holdcroft up there as well. Charging up the racetrack is Keith. Warren Kyle Keith, new race leader from Daytona.
And on the outside, and he's going to stay there. Hendry sees that. He goes to the bottom now to try and take the top spot in his Toyota Camry. That now puts on the outside Daniel Holdcroft's number 4, and those two being side by side. Here comes that parachute effect. They're just going to hold each other back, just kind of side drafting one another. And I never got to fully analyze the 90% aspect because it started the whole racing deal up in the front, Kenneth. But 10% of fuel reduction, it's not going to do a whole lot, but what it will accomplish is, let's say the fuel window was normally approximately 46 laps under normal conditions. It might be somewhere around 41 to 42 laps in that same scenario, which if you do the math across the 125 laps, it's almost on the dot to stopping this race. You might have to save a little bit. I'm not sure.
Well, if I'm remiss, we did see a nearly flag-to-flag race from Talladega, or at least we did see a pit stop strategy race. And a lot of drivers did talk about that in the wake of that superspeedway affair. And then, of course, by the end of 15 laps to go, then, of course, things turned up. We had the cautions, and eventually we ended up with that overtime restart falling in the hands of Jamal Pugh. But, of course, this is a very different racetrack. This is 2.5 miles, not 2.66 miles. And, of course, a very different style of racing, much more narrow surface, but you do have to keep all those things in mind. And strategy, again, could be the focal talking point rather than the actual action on the racetrack. And we've seen that happen many times before. We did see that happen the last time we were in Daytona, at least when it came down to late regular season. If you remember how Warren, Kyle Keith, and Lawson Peel got to the point of the closest drop in the Hammah Cup Series finish in series history, it happened through green flag strategy inside the final 20-ish laps. So you could see that, of course, happen again. But Warren, Kyle Keith trying not too much to rekindle those memories from all those months ago and last season here at Daytona. Big swinging block to the high side on Holdcroft. Tried to shut the door down the super stretch. Justin Hendry back in line. He's got help from Kunkel, but still the outside line dominating the charge back to turn 3, and they have more help.
What I've noticed as well, Kenneth, is that these cars, at least right now, they're not exactly going fast. Normally see you in the super speedway races as Hendry peaks to the bottom again with Parker Bland now looking to the outside as she worked her way from the back of the field up to the top 3 now. They're not exactly going as fast as they can be. They're kind of around the 180, 185 mile an hour range. Normally we see these cars easily reach 190, even 195 miles an hour. As Holdcroft's now slides to the bottom to try and take the top spot, and he'll do so in turn 2. But they're kind of a little bit slower. I'm not sure how much of that is due to the changes we saw at Talladega. They were obviously a little bit slower. And even then, so it was all in a fuel-saving effort at the same time. So that's probably what we're seeing here at, right now. There's some drivers looking to try and maybe see if they can get away with lifting a little bit off the gas to try and save some of that fuel, shorten that pit stop, but at the same time guarantee themselves only stopping twice. And others are praying for a caution to work out their strategies.
Onboard look with Justin Erb as he takes away one of the first few spots on the racetrack. Third as he takes it behind Parker Bland and Warren Kyle Keith. Mind you, Parker was the last driver to set a time in qualifying back in 19th place. That's where she started this race. And all of a sudden, early in the Firecracker 312, her and her teammates have joined her in the mix. And Parker Bland down the super stretch takes the lead for the first time tonight from Daytona. Erb will pick up Kyle Keith down the main straightaway. And they come back to turn 3 with a brand new leader at the front of this field. And remember, points talk is in the mix as we get to the late stages of this regular campaign. Justin Erb came into tonight's race 6 points out of the top 12 to make the drop in the Hammah Cup Series chase. The one driver he's been going up against in that points tally is Alex Muscarella, docked in 18th place as it stands. So this is a big-time move in the favor of Erb, getting track position early and trying to find just as many points as possible. And again, not in a season where stages are in effect. We had stages last year. We do not have stages in 2026, but still, Erb is hoping that his aggression early on with his teammates can help him try to solidify at least the top 12 heading into Sonoma next week.
Put up a good point there, Kenneth, at the same time. If there were stages, I'd be applauding him being aggressive, trying to get those positions to, if we were coming to the stage end, to get those points. But right now, the 48's a lot deeper in the field. You can get in a wreck trying to be aggressive. We see that happen a whole lot in these super speedway races, and we still have over 100 laps to go in this race. We have multiple strategies, multiple things that have yet to have happened that will unfold as the night goes on. So I know the track position is very important. Everybody wants to try and be as close to the front as possible, but your biggest ally is execution, and especially execution down pit road. We are going to see green flag pit stops probably in around 15 to 20 laps, and the biggest factor is going to be making sure you get in and out of pit road safely and cleanly, and exit on probably the first group. We're going to see the pack split up. It happens every time, and not speeding on pit road is going to be a huge one. We saw all of that go on at Talladega's. Warren Keith got a huge push from Justin Erb himself, and they tag the outside wall, and they lose a ton of momentum.
That's going to bring him all the way back. Justin Erb takes position in front, and now it's all about potential damage control. Do they try to find an open space on the inside of the racetrack? And I was just about to ask that if those SKM Fords had continued to stay locked in together, which it appears they are going to commit to this strategy, try to stay as close-knit as they can, how much will they go before they eventually hit pit road, and do they eventually find some drivers to follow them? It is going to be a big-time mental game as to who can be going in when, and when do the teammates follow in suit. But we have seen before, especially here at these super speedways, you do not want to pit by yourself, number one. But number two, you also don't want to pit in a group and then get left behind if you get a pit road speeding penalty, or if your stop is just too slow and you cannot catch up to any semblance of traffic by the time you get out off of turn number two. You could be in some dire circumstances, and we have seen drivers before either end up by themselves or in a two-car tandem, and they just cannot hold a candle to the pack that ends up forming behind them, and they end up falling easily a lap down or more, especially as the race continues to run under green. So a bit of the mishap there between some of the teammates has opened up the gap. Third and fourth now separated by more than half a second. That's Charles Van Schaik, the bright yellow and blue Goat Racing diecast Ford Mustang, the rookie driver in the top 5 right now for the first time tonight. And Justin Hendry, the last driver in this main group of 3, led by Parker Bland, getting her first laps led in her Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career since July of 2025. The last time she led some laps on the racetrack, it was at Talladega Super Speedway. We know Parker is very aggressive on these types of tracks. We know she can put herself in the right place. Had a really good race at Michigan many moons ago this year. And so the UPS Ford Mustang getting to shine some light at the front of this field through 27 laps. And strategy, I believe, Francisco, will be the focal point as those SKM Ford Mustangs continue to drift in the background. Nearly everybody in this field running single file down the straightaway.
Yeah, it just makes the most amount of sense right now to get single file, click off these laps, Kenneth. This race, you said it earlier, it's going to take over an hour and a half to complete, and you're not going to win the race right now, but you just want to get yourself in the right spot at the right time. So I think we'll see the intensity probably pick up within about the 5 laps before they decide to bring it down pit road. That'll be drivers jockeying for position, track position that is, so that you can enter pit road with a good enough gap. If you pit really far back in this lead group, you're already starting at a deficit, so the goal would be to try to pit somewhere when you're somewhere in the top 10, peel down off pit road, then you have a chance to jump somebody, make a good strategy call, and maybe even get a gap if you do it right enough. If you're this far back, well, you're just not really going to gain much as you're on board here with Jesse Whittington, who's in the middle of this single file group. And the biggest thing that a line of cars like this can do, you can ride around half throttle, 3/4 of the throttle, and keep up nicely with the cars in front of you, not really give too much of a gap, not really get pushed around the racetrack by the car behind you either. So it's just a really great opportunity to save fuel. And even if you don't extend that many laps, or say you do, it's all about shortening that pit stop at the same time. A second or two can really play a big role, and that's just the name of the game with super speedway racing in 2026. It's how little time can I spend on pit road, and can I just stretch it that little bit more to buy myself into a different window.
Do you get a little bit anxious when you come down pit road, whether it's in a group, a large group, or whether it be a small group of your teammates? Do you still find yourself maybe overthinking a little bit, trying to lock into that moment and not separate when you come off a pit lane?
Not really for me personally. I feel like I do a decent job of getting in and out of pit road, especially if there's multiple cars around me that are going to be doing the same strategy. I'm just more so concerned about myself. If something's going on, I'll try to react to it, but I have to focus on getting in and out of pit road without getting a penalty, without overshooting my stall. And 90% of the time, I'll say that I'll do that pretty effectively on these super speedways. We've seen KBueno Racing play these kind of strategies in different variations to a T. I don't think there's been a better team that can perform those strategies when they have their fair share of numbers. Tonight for the team, it's just Jaden Porter, so he's just trying to find out where can he insert himself into a strategy call to try to work with somebody. I just know there's going to be a group of cars out here just planning for a short stop somewhere in this race to try and jump the field.
You look there with Timothy Stubblefield right behind Charles Van Schaik and Jesse Whittington. Whittington getting his career best run at Talladega Superspeedway. And ever since then, the Cypress Racing Academy 94 has not finished a race outside of the top 5. He's been very impressive so far, especially late goings of this regular season. And that has helped him boost some confidence heading into the end of the season at Richmond. And once we start the chase, so far a solidified spot in the top 12. So we'll keep an eye on him. Whittington, of course, one of those 3 teammates. He's got one of them behind him, and Garrett Walden. So we'll just keep an eye on them, but they run single file. Maybe some of those first takers on pit road, especially as we look at what could be for them here tonight.
And very much in the 4th of July spirit are some of these paint schemes. See James Kunkel right there, that patriotic Mobile 1 behind him, Justin Erb, and that patriotic Mobile 1. I guess you can kind of call Brandon Banks' Larson paint scheme a patriotic scheme, given the Valvoline colors are pretty red, white, and blue there. 4th of July next weekend, Kenneth, I know you're not going to be joining us in Chicago with the rest of the KBueno crew. It's a shame, but I mean, 4th of July is up here. What are some of the favorite things that you like to do on this special holiday?
Well, honestly, you know, I've had many a July 4th just hanging out at home. You know, I usually spend time with my family. Sometimes we do end up putting some stuff on the barbecue, having a burger or some hot dogs as well. Like to indulge in the American classics, as you will. And then we don't usually light fireworks in our house, at least. And now I can't, now that I'm up here in Massachusetts, because that would be probably a violation of the entire neighborhood. But, you know, maybe there are some fireworks out there. There are going to be some city activities, so that'll be fun this year to experience for the first time. But usually just hang out with the family at home, probably cook some meals, and just watch the fireworks for the neighbors around us. I don't know if you have any typical July 4th plans that you've had, obviously, before this year, since you're going to be in Chicago for the Chicagoland race and NASCAR's return to the mile and a half in a long time. But do you have any traditions you carry on July 4th, or are you going to make a new here with this Chicagoland trip this weekend or this upcoming weekend?
I'm not sure which ones I could create, given the fact that if I make them, it's probably going to be tied to the city of Chicago in some sort of way. But, I mean, who doesn't love watching the hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July?
There we go.
Joey Chestnut, the all-time greatest, probably going to go at it again. I'm willing to bet he's going to get to 80 again, Kenneth. He's just the greatest, and I think he's got it in to get another 80 count in there. We'll be watching that, followed by the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race on 4th of July itself, and then capping off the night, I believe there's a fireworks show at Navy Pier to toss some fireworks up by Lake Michigan, which thankfully, like the Homecoming song by Kanye West and Chris Martin, I get to actually experience that lyric.
There you go. Well, it's going to be beautiful in Chicago in the summertime. It's going to be hot, but it's going to be gorgeous, and Chicagoland is going to be fun to watch for sure as NASCAR returns there for the first time since 2019. It's been a rather long while. People have been clamoring for them to go back to that mile and a half in Joliet, Illinois, but NASCAR did their side quest in going to downtown Chicago in Grant Park. So, Francisco, actually, you'll be able to once again experience the exact location of the NASCAR Cup Series, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Craftsman Trucks, their entire festivities when they were in Grant Park, and you can kind of do a track walk, if you will. I know you've been there before in the wintertime, but seeing it in the summer, I think that's going to be cool. But also seeing Joliet in its full form and refreshed as NASCAR goes back to the circuit, that will be great as well. We visited Chicagoland in this series last season. That was one of the great races we had very early on in 2025, where Brandon Banks ended up being victorious then on the very rough asphalt. They have since refreshed that track on iRacing, so we won't see it as we know in this edition of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series as we've seen this season unfold. However, it should be a lot of fun as the series goes on. Actually, we do have a trip to Chicagoland. August 16th, opening race of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series chase. So forget everything I just said. Book the ticket August 16th. We'll be there to start their journey to the championship.
Hey, and the start of the KBueno Truck Series Championship is also at Chicagoland on November 2nd, so we get to experience that a few times this season, and I'm sure 4Wide has it early on in the schedule as well, if I'm not mistaken.
It'll be great. We're going to have a lot of refresh tracks as well upcoming on the calendar. We know New Hampshire got a recent refresh, so that'll look good in the sim. Indianapolis also got a real big facelift. Richmond Raceway also got its brand new art refreshes done. Chicagoland, of course, we're going back to Rockingham, where we are told
Sonoma.
It is going to be the brand new refreshed and repaved version of Rockingham, Sonoma, on July 12th. That's going to be the final race where the drivers are mandated to have that America 250 banner to support, of course, the 250th year of America being around. We're also going to have Dover, Darlington, Bristol, and Charlotte. Those are classics that have been around for some time on the sim, but still look beautiful even after the refresh by the end of 2025. So as it stands, Parker Bland still the race leader. Daniel Holdcraft behind her in third or second place. Justin Hendry running in third. Charles Van Schaik, Timothy Stubblefield, top 5. And it appears we do have potential running down pit road, Francisco.
Yeah, they're through the driver chat. The leaders are saying that they're going to be pitting in this time, so watch for your front couple cars to peel down to pit road here.
Well, here they come. Ford, Toyota, Ford, and several others are in there as well. Most of the field stays out. Parker Bland is in. The rest of the drivers up front in the top 5 have called it their first green flag pit stop. Call it lap 37. And Jesse Whittington, in turn, will take over the race lead with Garrett Walden, Charles Van Schaik, and Cedric Hunter right behind to complete the rest of the top 4. Get a look at all those drivers that are on pit road on the left side of your screen. But the Cypress Racing Academy duo of Whittington and Walden get their chance to shine at the front through 38. But you will be not surprised to hear that more drivers will be calling down pit road. A big question mark is how many come in this time by off of turn number 4. Remember, you're going from about 185 miles an hour to that pit road speed limit. Can be very shallow here at Daytona. Off turn 4, nobody peels from the front group, and everyone stays out the extra lap this time by.
Now, it was a really early call from this group, so I'm not sure how many more laps they could have gone, if how much of that was from leading this race. And you see that they kind of exited a little bit strung out. They're not exactly bumper to bumper, but they'll get joint up here within about the lap or so and get wound up. And now it's going to be about getting together, getting up to speed. You see the leaders are a little bit strung out at the same time, and we'll see how much longer they can go. I think if they can get to about lap 41 or 42, then they could really make this a 2-stop race, which is why we saw the fuel games with how much slower they were running earlier on in the stint. We do have a few more fuel colors in, so I think we have another group of cars that are going to be peeling off of pit road here.
Those were the first 3. Leaders pass. Rest of them, here they come. SKM Sim Racing looks like they are in. James Kunkel, Warren Kyle Keith, Justin Erb, Kevin Roy, Dana Shepard, and a few others have hit pit road this time by. Clean entry on the pit stops. Bit of damage to the 44 of Dana Shepard. Possibility to fix that while they are under the green flag sequence. But again, the key is staying together. Do not let the drivers find into black flag penalties. And of course, don't have trouble coming off a pit lane as well. We have seen those speeding penalties not only happen at the entry of pit road. I've committed that cardinal sin before on a super speedway, pitting when you're coming off of your pit box. It is a very prominent thing that can still happen, and so keep your eyes peeled. That could be a big-time topic of conversation. Leaders are now coming off turn 4. Jesse Whittington and the rest of the leaders are following suit. Here comes Hunter, Banks, Easley, Walden, Whittington, all of them chasing. Hunter overcooks the brakes sideways as he gets into the line. The field avoids him. And I don't know how Cedric Hunter avoided a pit road speeding penalty. Will stay green. No trouble from Hunter other than lost track position.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely going to have a pit road speeding penalty after that one, Kenneth. But he did an incredible job of saving the car, not getting anybody else into it. And as we look on the main side of the screen, the field did cycle out towards this group right here. You're going to see the gap here between the leader of this pack of Parker Bland in them, and then you go back to about 2 seconds, and there's the group. There's Warren Kyle Keith trying to hang on with the draft. There's James Kunkel, Kevin Roy. They're pretty strung out here. So as this first group that pitted comes by, you're going to see how up to speed they are. They have a huge run as the field has to stay below the apron to get up to speed before they're allowed by iRacing to rejoin off the blue line on the exit of turn number 2. Remember, they're roughly 40 miles an hour quicker by this point, and you see just how easily they cleared most of the front pack. Now it's up to those front 2 cars to see how much they can hold up this pack. They're still not quite up to speed. It takes almost an entire lap. There's the 94 Whittington. Not really anything he could do here defensively to try and hold back Parker Bland, Daniel Holdcroft, but he'll tuck in with the draft. So will Warren Kyle Keith. Garrett Walden might be out of luck. He'll probably fall back to that second group, and that goes to show how good of a pit stop those front four did early on in the stint. It was just 4 cars. They did it good. They did it clean. They did it fast, and now they have roughly 2 seconds on the pack led by Garrett Walden. And now it's going to be up to that second pack. If they can make up some ground. And remember, I don't think any of them pitted up late enough to where you can make it easily on one more pit stop from here on out. So fuel very much in the question.
Well, remember, there was that situation of talking about no separating between the lead drivers, and that could become a very dire circumstance while Whittington is getting saved by those front cars at the head of this field. However, Walden trapped back. He now picks up everybody 9th on back, or rather 8th on back with Zach Wilson. Walden is now since filed in to the 7th spot. We did see at least a 2nd and 3/10 between Whittington and Walden, the 2 teammates that came out first on a very early pit call. But that was 4 fresh tires and some fuel, nearly 15 seconds of gas put in the race cars, so no shortage of fuel or tires on any of those cars. But of course, that separation big time for the 2 teammates that now cannot work together until at least some of this group tries to catch up to the main pack. Now, of course, there is a bit of a method to the madness, Francisco, and you mentioned this earlier on in the show, the methodology of KBueno Racing, where it was to pit earlier than everyone else, but then push harder than everyone else in the middle of the draft. How crucial is it to not only have enough patronage to be able to move up to the field and have enough speed to carry throughout a speedway like this, but also organization and pushing? How important is that from everybody involved to be able to have a cohesive front group like we see here?
Yeah, it's very important, Kenneth. Before the pit stops even start, you have to understand who you need in which positions, because there's certain drivers that excel at doing something that maybe somebody else isn't, or they're not comfortable doing a different part. I'll give you a perfect example. Ethan Fonseca Moreno, great leader when it comes to leading our lines. Jaden Porter, great pusher. You also need a great third pusher. All of that to manage temperatures, manage the line. And the biggest thing, you don't want to really force the lap times or push for lap times until it's just your own group. If it's not with your own group, you give somebody else an advantage that can possibly catch them up to you. So you come in early, take the shorter stops since it takes less time to fill the tank up all the way. You're automatically going to jump the main pack, and at that point, push for lap time. You might be able to completely pull yourself away to the point that when you pay the price of saving time earlier and having to serve more time later, you already have a bigger advantage than when you started. So in the end, it ends up working out that way, and I think that's what we're seeing out of this front pack. But I think everybody's kind of really closed in the gap from Garrett Walden up to Warren Kyle Keith, so it's made it one solid pack now, as there they go around the 44 of Dana Shepard, who's now sits 1 lap down. And that breaks up into a 15-car pack. Cedric Hunter's at the back of this pack. Surprised that Hunter didn't get a penalty. Like you said, on pit road, I guess I was wrong. It definitely looked like he was speeding. But there's a secondary kind of strangler of cars being led by James Kunkel, Kevin Roy, Justin Erb, who's back there as well. See right here? Just kind of strung out. This is all about 6 seconds behind the lead pack, and they're strung out. They're not anywhere near each other. So they're going to be struggling to make up any sort of time here unless they attempt to save some fuel, which the rest of the pack does not appear to be doing.
Yeah, and they appeared to be pitting right in the middle of the cycle. So we're seeing the drivers up at the front. They were the earliest drivers to come in on pit road. That's 8 laps that they've put in on their stint. And then you look at everyone behind them. For the most part, they are looking at around 6 to 5 laps, rather 5 laps in their stint. And then you have the 6 laps that are on the stint for those drivers that you're watching that are at the back of this field in that sort of strangle. And those stragglers that have been at the back of the field for a while trying to hook up together and at least make some of that time up as this race progresses near its halfway mark. So it is going to be interesting to see if they do alter their strategy as long as we stay green. However, with the racing we've seen, it hasn't looked yet like there has been any chaos on the racetrack. And the drivers haven't gotten too aggressive on the speedway yet. So as the top 5 pull away and the rest of them try to save some fuel, it's going to be a big question mark as to who can find their way to the front. And with that fuel window that's very much on the edge of being complete, with a 2-stopper here in the Firecracker 312, you do have to sort of watch your back and make sure you got all your P's and Q's settled and all the numbers crunched down correctly as Parker Bland continues to lead the way from the virtual Daytona International Speedway. It's been a fun one tonight, all about strategy and possibly some more crunching of the numbers we'll have to do in the meantime. But for now, we'll take a short side-by-side break. You're watching coverage of Race 14 in the 2026 Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season and the Firecracker 312.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
These Pop-Tarts are tasty.
Maybe Pop-Tarts do belong on the tailgate table.
Pop-Tarts, a lineup you can eat. There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
And back live from the Daytona International Speedway, you're watching coverage of Race 14 in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season. As we continue on the action from Daytona, you're watching the 5th place car, Jesse Whittington, as he rides in a long line of cars as we've completed our first green flag pit stop strategy sequence of the night. And we've got 3 different types of strategies, and we're talking about it over break, Francisco. The front 4 pitted at least 13 laps ago on what is lap 38. Everyone else on either lap 41 or 40. And a majority of the pack that's right behind Whittington, and that does include this 94 car pitted around lap 40. So there is, or 41 rather. So there is a situation where they can maybe, on a tight schedule, fit the rest of this window if we do stay green flag racing, which, to the note, we have been doing so far. No caution flags yet. We had one semi-scare with Cedric Hunter nearly going sideways as he entered pit road in a pack of cars. Other than that, no drama and nothing else that has occurred here in the Firecracker 312. A rather tame super speedway race right now, all of the testing grounds of the brand new package being implemented from the admins of the series. And so far, we've been treated to more of a strategy race than a action intensity packed super speedway affair. Parker Bland continues to lead some laps here at Daytona, has dominated the second segment of the race after Steven Stempien led the first bulk and then gave the lead away in the middle of the green flag stretch to save some fuel. Francisco, are you concerned about these top 4, knowing how early they pit, and if we stay green, how many stops they'll have to make until it's all over?
Yeah, I have my proper concerns with the 4 cars leading this group. They were the first to pit, and at the same time, they've been leading for most of this portion, so they're probably going to have to pit early again. I have my doubts on their ability to pit just one more time in this race. The good side is if you do have to stop twice, if the field has to stop twice, it might come in earlier and just take a splash only. So we'll see that unfold as the laps go on, and at what point they decide to veer off course and attempt that strategy. If we're going off the 2-stop potential, you're looking somewhere around lap 80 for most of the field. If they went 40 laps and can't extend further, do the math, that's 40-40. Oh wait, final stint's 45 laps. Can't really do it unless you go 41 or 42, which we saw a group do 41 laps. That group right there, that's currently being led by the 94 of Jesse Whittington. Then you have to go back a few cars to the rest of the group, starting with Garrett Walden all the way back to Cedric Hunter. All those drivers, they pitted on lap number 41. So I think they're in a great spot that if they can replicate that or even add a lap to it, give them a great chance of being able to just one-stop this race to the checkered flag. Everybody else, a little bit of a yellow flag there.
And the good news with them is that they can save a lot of that fuel, especially if Whittington maybe backs out here if he goes behind Warren Kyle Keith, which and maybe won't be allowed from the 24 cars. You see Van Schaik gain a ton of track position. That's how much everyone is saving in the middle of this pack. They know it's going to be tight to make it. Van Schaik does not care at all. Huge run in the middle of the top 5. Van Schaik sneaks in front of Jesse Whittington. How about some extra reassurance in the draft? Why don't you? As they try to gain some draft. Warren Kyle Keith backs out of line. Jesse Whittington steps out in front once again, and it is all in an attempt to try and save as much fuel as possible. So you're not even looking at 100% throttle input by anyone in this main pack, and that could potentially help all of those drivers that were trapped at the very back of the green flag run. Remember drivers like Justin Erb, Kevin Roy, Casey Knighting. This is the straggler group from about 17th on back. This is actually 16th on back, led by James Kunkel and that bright neon Chevrolet behind him of Kevin Roy. They continue to push out in front. They're setting at least similar lap times to those ahead of them. They know they'll have to save fuel, but if they can push now, possibility that they can gain some of that ground and then save after if they do end up in the draft. So while the leaders continue to run at a minimum pace, everyone stays behind, all eyes forward, anticipating that this race is not going to have a yellow flag, at least coming up to the second half of the event. There's Zach Wilson in his first ever Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series start. A big welcome back to Zach Wilson. If you have not been a tuner, or if you've not been tuning into the races of the Sunoco Cup Series and even some of the MPI Cup Series as well, then you would know the name Zach Wilson if you were tuned in. If you're not, then of course we can introduce you to the driver of the 60 in his first start tonight, but has been very close to a bulk of the drivers in this series, having raced with them for many years on end since 2020. And so a huge welcome. Great to have Zach Wilson and Justin Hendry back in the field. For Wilson, his first time. For Hendry, his first appearance since season number 1. So we do have some returning drivers and some new faces here at Daytona. Great to see them joining. Even in the late portions of this regular season, we'll see if they can make a splash as the season continues on. So the save remains up in the front. And then you ask the question, Francisco, when do you go? Warren Kyle Keith says possibly his time now as he tries to get around Jesse Whittington. But where is going to be the semblance of urgency here, or is that going to be non-existent now that we know this race has settled into its green run?
This race is mostly settled in. I don't think you're going to see too many drivers be too aggressive. It depends where you are in the field. I think for the most part, most of the field is feeling like, okay, we're running good laps. We've gone about halfway through this race. Let's keep saving some fuel to try and avoid one extra pit stop. And I think you might see on occasion drivers to try and make a move like Van Schaik did. Van Schaik was outside the top 10. Now he's settled into the 5th position. And again, all that matters because when you enter pit road is significant. If you're the leader, you're setting the pace. Let's take, for example, the last car in this lead pack, which is all bunched up together. Once again, Stephen Harlow is the last car in line. He's 22nd, 3 seconds behind the leader. If that's when you start your pit, you're 3 seconds behind automatically from trying to make anything. So not only do you have to pit with a group, but you have to make up 3 seconds just to even take the lead away. So making sure you stop while somewhere in the top 5, top 10 when you do it is going to be just as important as your execution in and out of the lane. Now the leaders, on the other hand, the last few laps I've been noticing that there's pace. They've been backing this pack down. They're not exactly going full throttle either, at least up until the moves are being made. There was a few moves that were made, I think, by Warren Kyle Keith that accelerated this pack. They've kind of upped the pace here in the last lap or two. They were running lap times, I would say, somewhere in the 49s. It was looking like upper 48s, lower 49s. I think they're going to run a 47 this time based on their pace. But that goes to show it. There's target lap times. You want to slow the pace down 1-2 seconds. That can buy you 1 or 2 laps.
Well, here they come. James Kunkel, Kevin Roy, Justin Erb, and Brad Fulham. A 4-car group trying to make some headway at the front. They've gotten around Kip Beasley, Chuck Stevens, and now a few others at the very back end of this main group. So they're trying to make an imprint, pushing forward near the halfway marker of tonight's Firecracker 312, gaining spots at the top end. And here comes Warren Kyle Keith found the call, and he's answering it off of turn 2. We'll back down to the double yellow line as they push forward to the super stretch. But how far do these 3 go before they run out of gas?
And it all depends on the leaders. They were running 49 zeros, 49 ones for a few, and then they saw Warren look to make a move, and I think they decided, okay, let's try to accelerate a bit and see if we can kind of catch them out and force them to get back in line. They upped the pace. Last lap was 47.7. When they cross the start finish line this time, let's see what they run. It's going to be 47.7 again. So they've clearly been pushing the car more. Now Warren Kyle Keith has his teammates, so they're trying to get to the front in a similar way as Van Schaik did, but now with the pace increased, you have to do it with help, and in a situation like this, that's where you can end up getting in a wreck.
And that's where you look at the lap time differences again. While the leaders are at that 47.7 mark, those drivers on the high side, led by Keith, 47.561. We saw 47.1 put in by James Kunkel at least a lap or 2 ago. So the times are crunching down, but of course that's the effort to be aggressive and try to lead laps, try to sneak in line, and try to save some fuel in the middle of traffic while also having the benefit of track position. We did see that switch over in the overcut and undercut call from the SKM Ford Mustangs, which, like the first run, they were aggressive just like this to be able to push their way to the lead, and they got there for a while, and they do have one of their teammates still up there, but of course they're going to try their best getting around Garrett Walden. They'll look to the high side of Jesse Whittington. That's going to be in the battle for the top 6 position. Then on Charles Van Schaik down the main super stretch, still trying to gain some time on Bland and company with 64 laps to go. It continues to be fun to watch. SKM not letting down back to turn 3.
And remember, there were some of those that pitted later on in the run, so they definitely still saved some fuel. Now, if you're James Kunkel or Justin Erb, remember, they had to make up 5-6 seconds just to catch up to this pack, so they definitely had to burn a little bit of fuel just to even be in this position. So I'm not sure how much they're prioritizing the track position or what their fuel status is, but one thing's for sure is they're trying to get to the front, and it has forced the leaders who thought they could back down the rest of the pack and try to save some fuel to up the pace once again, probably get them a little bit more uncomfortable, more uneasy on their strategy call here over the next course of laps. They're on their 25th lap of the stint. They went 38 on their first run. I'd like to think that they can extend it a little bit more on this one, but even if they get to 40, you're looking at lap 83. I don't know, that is pretty close. That they can get 20 more laps out of it. That's a lot. If they get 15, you're looking at lap 78. In that range, that's really where you want it to be, closer to the further side of that of 83 that you can be, a really great chance you have on that final run. But again, just really close for comfort, and at some point you get a feeling a caution will come out late in this race, which will allow you to save fuel and avoid losing track position by pitting under the yellow flag if you're one of these front runners, but you just don't know when it's going to come out. You can't guarantee it down to the betting margins. You just have to be ready for it and give yourself the most amount of fuel in case you find yourself in that position. We talk about fuel a lot, Kenneth, and I hate to do so, but at the same time, we've seen too many times how important it is that every drop is, especially get over the last year in some of these speedway races. Think back to the Pocono race in 4 wide. Ethan Fonseca Moreno ran out of fuel on the 3rd overtime restart as he was coming across the line to win. When I won Indianapolis, I was half a lap to the good. There's been so many races, it seems like, in 4 wide in this series, in multiple different series that we have covered, where drivers are saying, yeah, I had probably less than a lap of fuel running at the checkered flag. That is exactly why we talk about fuel, because clearly it is being the difference between winning the race and not.
I mean, it's also a bigger difference, Francisco, because the setup and the power has changed. When you do have the baseline 100% normal 670, or in this case 510 at the super speedways, when you have that normal power output and the normal weight, you can predictably try and find your way through saving fuel and working a fuel strategy like we're seeing here. But when you change the power output, when you change the weight on the car, when you change the setup entirely and the 90% fuel, you're dealing with a brand new situation that if drivers haven't prepared for a situation like this yet, they are not ready for it until the race anticipates itself. And then you have to learn on the fly, and SKM Racing have found themselves back at the front, this time with Warren Kyle Keith. The pushers continue to remain there, 60 laps to go. Kunkel in second, the leaders fake down to the bottom. They're trying to find some space, and they attempt to have so down to the double yellow line. They're trying to bring Justin Erb with them And they do. Almost everyone in the top 5. SKM except for Kevin Roy off of turn 4.
Leaves Justin Hendry out there on the top side and nobody to help the 85 machine. He's going to try to tuck in front of Jesse Whittington behind Van Schaik. He'll do so. So just back to single file with the SKM cars in front. And I don't think that group led by Parker Bland is going to be too unhappy about this, because now they get a better chance of saving fuel than when they were leading. So now's a good time to let off the throttle a little bit, try to ease into these gaps. And it's incredibly easy to save fuel in a speedway like this, Kenneth. You don't have to go full throttle at all. I know we've mentioned it, but you can control the gap you have to the car in front of you. Brake dragging is something that we see a lot of drivers do for speedways. You don't need that. Just aerodynamically brake. You see you're closing in on the car in front, roll out of the throttle a little bit. You see you're losing a little bit, increase it a little bit. You never have to go full throttle when you're in the draft. The only time you should be going full throttle is when it's at the end of the race trying to win the thing. Any other time, save that fuel. It is ever so critical.
Charlie Bauer Photography onboard camera with Garrett Walden running in the top 11. And of course behind his teammate for Cypress Racing Academy. That's been kind of the memo for them throughout the portion of this race. Through 68 laps, they have just remained nose to tail, although Walden giving a bit of space. Of course, that is letting off the throttle, building up the run, trying to hang in the draft, and also not lose too much time in the process. But we were on board as well with Kevin Roy. And how about a shout out to Kevin Roy? Started dead last in this race, 24th in the field, with no one else to help him at the back, and the mellow yellow Chevrolet, even in this group, not teammates with the SKM drivers, but he's here anyway. Actually, he is teammates with the SKM drivers, but one of them who is just in a different manufacturer here, Chevrolet tonight for Roy. But what an outstanding performance tonight it has been, from the back of the field to basically the front. He's done a great job, although he didn't set a time in qualifying. Now has a chance to potentially seal this race in with his teammates here, with 56 laps to go next time by. It's been one of those kinds of strategy races here at Daytona, something that we probably did not expect to see. But again, there were question marks all over about what this power output and this weight was going to do to these cars, how they felt. Of course, the drivers did put in some practice trying to figure out what was the right setup. After Echo Park and Talladega, and even the first race here at Daytona, all of them had different setups for the most part. Just trying to figure out the right balance of power versus weight to be able to create some great racing. But instead, it's been all about trying to figure out what number is the right number to make it to the checkered, and how many pit stops can you make it until the end, and if you can minimize that to at least one or potentially two stops. But it could be a big throwaway if we do end up with a caution flag, and overtime ends up becoming part of the equation. Warren Kyle Keith continues to lead laps in this Firecracker 312. First time he is confidently out front after his teammate James Kunkel and a few of his other friends pushed him out on the straightaway to turn 3 to have his nose out in front. And again, wouldn't be the first time that we end up with a strategy race here in the World Center of Racing. This was the regular season finale in 2025. Lawson Peel and the rest of his teammates coming in on pit road first. Warren Kyle Keith, his teammates and others pitting next. They had a challenge to catch way up to the front of the pack. They did so at the end of the race with under 5 laps to go. Warren Kyle Keith was there, and in the chase off turn number 4, the target car weaves to the bottom, weaves to the top. They crash coming to the start finish line. Warren Kyle Keith thought he had the race won, and that, my friends, the closest ever finish in Droppin the Hammah Cup Series history. Less than 1/1000th of a second, and at the line, timing and scoring said Lawson Peel, the race winner at the World Center of Racing. What a night that was. Took us a while at Francisco to figure out who was the actual winner of that race. Timing and scoring said by the slimmest of margins it was Lawson, and there was a picture out there. Parker Bland got a capture post-race, probably 1 or 2 pixels that separated those two cars in the sim at the line. Of course, Keith in control now, hoping that is not going to be the situation that befalls him this time. However, 54 to go. Still many questions to be answered on what their strategy is looking like until the end.
54 laps to go. The question becomes, if you cannot do one stop to the end of this race, when do you decide to peel off pit road and try to take 2 shorter stops? Because if you know you can't, then I think there's a point in time where, okay, you take your group of cars, and go down pit road, take the bullet, and just run again, and then make your second pit stop. You might buy yourself into a caution window by doing that, since you don't exactly lose a lap. But as these laps continue to wind down, we're going to be increasingly closer to that point. That main group, Parker Bland, Daniel Holdcroft, Timothy Stubblefield, they're on their 35th lap of this stint. Expect to see them down pit road in 5 to 8 laps. That's really close to the window being open. You could really consider it open, I guess, with if we get an overtime finish or any caution laps, I guess you can consider it open with 45 to go. So yeah, right on the nails.
Overtime could be a conversation point, but we have yet to see a yellow flag tonight. And that would make it back-to-back flag-to-flag affairs after the back out 225 from Phoenix a few weeks ago did also go without a single caution flag coming out, although we did have more scares than we've had tonight at the World Center of Racing. The strategy has been the focal point. The drivers have been trying to save some fuel, but potentially we could have some racier coverage by the end of this one should the drivers find themselves in that final pit stop. And again, it looks like a mirror image of what that last Daytona race looked like in 2025, where strategy ideally was the point until they had to race for the win, and that second pack caught up to the first one, and it was all mono from there. Just standout super speedway racing from top to bottom, and then of course ending with that illustrious finish and Lawson Peel getting the win by the slimmest of margins. We could very well see the same situation happen here tonight, although we're still in this holding pattern, waiting for the drivers to figure out what their plan is. And now that the drivers at the front have reached their 34th lap, if an overcut is going to be worth their time, or how long they can actually push it until these cars cannot go any longer. It's Warren Kyle Keith at the front of this field. James Kunkel running behind him as we cross the marker for 51 laps to go. Kevin Roy runs in third after starting last in tonight's race. He's the biggest mover tonight. Justin Erb is back in fourth. Parker Bland, who's led a bulk of this race in the midpoint herself, she's lining up in the top 5. Daniel Holdcroft behind her in 6th place. Timothy Stubblefield, former Daytona winner, back in 7th, with Charles Van Schaik, Justin Hendry, and Jesse Whittington rounding out the top 10. There's at least more than a second and a half, by the way, separating Hendry and Whittington, who has now picked up the front bumper of his teammate Garrett Walden, running in 11th, and another teammate of theirs in Chuck Stevens at Red and White Chevrolet, running back in 12th place. So ideally, this is going to become just a waiting game at this point. All the contenders who we usually see running for wins each and every week on Sundays, they're hanging in the back, just waiting for their moment to shine, while the drivers up front have committed to their strategy, and they're just going to run this out until the very dry spell for the gas tanks on these cars, Ford, Chevrolet, or Toyota, here with 50 laps to go. And I want to ask you, Francisco, because we are at the back end of this regular season, we had our bit of a stint where we were racing mostly on tracks that are 2 miles or over. So since Talladega, we had Michigan, we had Pocono, 2-miler in Michigan, 2.5-miler in Pennsylvania. Then we went short track racing at Phoenix, so that wasn't a part of the group, but back on a 2.5-miler in Daytona. And then we get to change things up. Our only road course race of the season at Sonoma. I want to know your thoughts on what could be in wine country as Parker Bland, undercut, decides to pit, swerving on pit road, saves it at the line.
We'll have to see if Parker saved herself from a pit road penalty, much like Cedric Hunter did, as she's approaching her stall now, as this is on their 39th lap of their stint. So I think they're definitely in a situation where they cannot go to the end pitting an extra lap. Most of the field is probably going to be following it over the course of the next few. And I'm hearing a lot of chatter right now on the radio of drivers going to be making their way down pit road on this lap, Kenneth. And I think it's safe to say the field cannot make it on one more pit stop.
Well, here's decision time off turn 4. Weaving down low, Warren Kyle-Key, James Kunkel heavy on the brakes, entering the line. Will that be too much speed? He carried it through, no lock of the brakes, but he takes the net race lead as they come down pit road. Jesse Whittington, Walden, and the few others that pitted again on lap number 41 of this race will wait it out at least an extra lap, but those Fords are in. Right side of your screen is where they're all coming through. And then, of course, left side of your screen where all those are coming on pit road. There's Van Schaik. Bland is coming off a pit lane as well. And the rest of them have followed suit.
She got a penalty. She's just served it, so now she's on her way out Daniel Holdcroft was the only car that actually exited out of that group. So really a disastrous stop there from what was a great first time down pit road for that group of cars. The rest of the field that pitted, there you see how far they got. So really just a disaster from that original group of cars that pitted early.
Now, it was probably spelling disaster from the start for Bland. She had pitted nearly by herself. Daniel Holtzcroft and a few others had followed, but we did see that near spill on pit road. Too much speed entering the limit line, and so she serves the penalty and will fall a lap down or more here at Daytona. She's now back in 23rd, 1 lap behind the leaders. So the rest of them stay out here. Whittington, Walden, Stevens, your top 3 coming down to the super stretch, and this is going to get tight. I mean, 47. No driver has been able to go more than at least 41 laps on a tank of gas. So they will most likely have to pit at least one more time. But it's lap 38 here for the leaders coming to 39. So they can maybe stretch it to around 45 laps to go. But Francisco, we don't know how much fuel they've actually fully saved. The only good news here for Whittington and company here is that they do have drivers right in front of them, or at least they have one. Not sure if they'll try to just rally back behind, save a bit more time. It looks like that's Daniel Holtzcroft getting out of the gas. The RTR Ford Mustang moves out of the way, and so the leaders will move on by, and Whittington will continue wasting as much fuel as he's had here while he's assumed the lead. But it's really how much fuel did they really save, and how close are they going to get? It'll be 45 to go this time by. No word yet on whether they will come down. Remember, they went 41 on their opening stint. It's 39 coming to 40. No one on pit road this time from the main group.
I think this group right here, I think they're definitely aiming to try the pitting this last time and trying to go to the end of the race. You don't go this close to the end and then not try to do it. They're on their 40th lap now. If they can get one extra lap, I can say they can do it. The biggest factor you have to consider when saving all this fuel is, okay, let's say those drivers, Warren Keith, who's 13th on back, let's say they can't make it through. They probably really can't, and they have to stop again. The active gap is currently 38 seconds from Whittington back to Warren Keith, who's 13th in the first car, who just pitted recently. And I hear pit calls right now. If you consider that 38-second gap, that's the time you have to give up for fuel saving to try and make it the 44 laps that they're going to have to go. There you see them going down the pit lane, but it's not everybody.
Well, here they come. Whittington, Walden, Stevens, the 3 teammates predictably come in. Zach Wilson and one more straggling car will join them from the back end of this group. That appears to be Casey Knight in car 28, back in 12th place. So the teammates come in, and Kip Easley, for the first time since seeing the outside of the front row with the green flag, will assume the race lead with Brad Fulham, Brandon Banks, Alex Muscarella, and Steven Stepien right behind in the top 5. Again, these are mostly characters that were near the front of this field at the beginning of this Firecracker 312. They were nowhere to be seen through midway, and now through the final 44 laps, they have a chance to just barely make it on their tank of gas. They went a little bit longer. Now 42 laps they'll be approaching. Inside goes Brad Fulham. Dana Shepard follows suit. The 2 Chevrolets are ending up in. Drinkin' Bros Racing will stay out this time by. Can they make it to the end? 42. They've gone on their stint.
I really like this one right here. That group that just stayed out on this extra lap, really like to see it. I think there's enough cars and at the same time enough laps to where they certainly can make up the deficit on their fuel counts to continue this going. They're probably going to lose the gap to Warren Keith, and they probably won't be in this immediate fight for the top spot. But that's okay, because this group has to pit again. So when this group decides to pit, whether it's this lap or the next one, I think they're in the best position to make it to the end of the race. Even if a caution were to come out afterwards, they still have enough fuel to save whilst on the racetrack, as there they go down pit road now. And this time I think it is everybody of that lead group that's going to be working their way into the lane. It's about 6 cars, really.
Oh, spinner!
Oh, contact!
The teammates are into it. Steven Stepien picks up damage as well. And it was a spinning Brandon Banks that got into Kip Easley. Steven Stepien had nowhere to go. And there's drama from the group that couldn't make it to the checkered.
That's the last thing you need to do when you're on this kind of a strategy, Kenneth. They were right. They were on the right strategy. If you execute in and out of pit road, you don't have to bring it back down again. You probably are in a position to win this race. Now at least Banks and easily. They're probably going to have a tough time recovering from this race without any cautions. Steven Stempion's going to have some damage. You see the left front kind of pushed in, and it's giving him a 40-second hold. He just said right there, you saw him peek into the mic, he announced in the chat he has a 40-second hold, so trouble for the group.
What a disaster on pit road for the main characters that could have made it to the checkered flag in this race. And now it is all up to this group, who may have to pit at least one more time to possibly settle the score. We've seen, again, multiple drivers other than them coming on pit road that just came in and are now exiting, but they will be rather diminished in their group. It is now just 3 cars in a line. Cedric Hunter, David Duran, and Alex Muscarella. We talked about points earlier on tonight. It was 6 the difference between Muscarella, the last driver in the chase standings, and Justin Erb, who would have been the first driver out entering tonight's race. It's been the swing in Erb's favor all night long, and it could be until this pivoting moment. With 41 laps to go, who can make it? Can they stretch it to the end on gas? And will these leaders have anything to worry about until the end?
I think for the group that's leading, the 4 cars out in front, there's just too many laps that they have to run on fuel to get them to the scheduled end of this race. They're gonna have to stop again. It's that 2nd and 4th groups that I'm really looking at that have the best chance at doing so, but that 4th group really got its momentum hurt when that contact happened down pit road. So we'll just have to see how they can bounce back from this. Again, keeping in mind that they don't have to stop again. Here's a replay, and it looks like right here, yeah, it looks like Banks kind of loses it on his own, tags easily, gets into the 88 of Stempien. I think Stempien completely leaving pit road there and rejoining is where he got his pit road penalty. It's a shame that he serves that one given the accident. That could have easily been cleared by the admins. But here we go. Banks goes in hot, still a little bit quick, and the rears go away from him. Almost has it saved, but the 27's just there, and Steven Stempien has nowhere to go. Again, just a little bit surprising, I would say. Maybe not trying to exert some admin force there, but that is a situation where I think 99% of the time a admin would clear that black flag for Stempien in that situation.
And they did not, so he had to spend all that time on pit road. And now not only is Brandon Banks 4 laps down, Steven Stempien is back in 21st, a lap down from the leaders. So it is a huge blow-up scenario for those Chevrolets that look to have this race in their back pocket. They were going to have the strategy to win the race outright. As an overall group, they have now gone down to 3 cars that we, as of right now, can sense they can make it. They went 42 on their stop. They were coming in on their 43rd lap. And with 42 laps to go at the stripe, that is basically the marker. They can make it until the end. That is if they do save enough fuel in the middle of their line. You are watching the leaders as they run to the 18 degrees of tri-oval banking and to the 31 degrees of banking in turn 1. Warren Kyle Keith is the current race leader of the Firecracker 312. Justin Erb right behind him in second. Kevin Roy, Charles Van Schaik, and Jesse Whittington to your top 5. This is everyone all the way back to Parker Bland and Stephen Harlow that are not actually a part of this group. They are a lap down in 19th and 20th, but they are trying to fight for the SKM Lucky Dog with James Kunkel, who is also part of this group, in the back of the line. So Stephen Harlow trying to get through, cannot break through Parker Bland. So realistically, only 4 lead lap cars in this pack. So with 37 laps left until a winner is called here from Daytona, Warren Kyle Keith continues to lead the way at the World Center of Racing. Why don't we turn up the sounds and crank it up here on the KBueno Racing Network. music to our ears. Hearing these cars whip around the Daytona International Speedway, we continue this Firecracker 312 under the green flag. And as the leaders cross the line, you're watching the now 32 laps to go. Here from the World Center of Racing, our 4th out of 5 super speedway trips we'll have this season. 1 more left to go in the chase at Talladega, but our final trip to the World Center of Racing here in Daytona Beach, Florida. Kenneth Bueno and Francisco Bacallao with you throughout the night. We've been trying to crunch down who can make it to the checkered and how many of those still on track still need 1 more pit stop to make it until the end of this race. These drivers you're watching at the front of this field, they pitted 16 laps ago, and we noted they possibly could not make it to the end of this race on their given strategy. And then the drivers who did have the winning strategy still out there, only 3 of them on the lead lap, with Alex Muscarella, David Duran, and Cedric Hunter, as Brandon Banks, Kip Easley, and Steven Stemping ended up with damage or penalties as they came in and out of pit road on their most recent stop with 42 laps to go. So Francisco, I'd imagine for these drivers here, it doesn't seem like they are pushing too hard, doesn't seem like they are saving that much either. They're just in this limbo spot. Do you still commit to any kind of specific strategy? What do you try to do here? Now that everything is kind of in a wash, we have all those cars around. You do have the ideal concern of Duran, Muscarella, and Hunter that theoretically can make it to the end now that they have drafting help. So what's in the mind of those leaders as Keith continues to waste more gas?
If you're the leaders, I think you're just committed to stopping again. Now, which lap you decide to do so is a great call. You don't want to do it too early to, I guess, get yourself into some kind of window later on. Or perhaps at the same time, you're trying to wait out for a caution, though. If you pit under caution, most of the field could probably stay out anyways, and you'll lose the track position. I think you pit now, guarantee yourself against a caution. You probably lose less spots anyway, given the fact that they're stopping short, and if the yellow were to come out afterwards, then you can just stay out regardless of what happens. So it's really interesting ways you can play it. We'll just have to see how they decide to do it. You see, this second group has really bunched up. They've caught up to... I think that's the 5th place car of Jesse Whittington that's leading this line of cars, with Chuck Stevens and Garrett Walden, Zach Wilson up in the front couple of cars. So those are the kind of group of cars that you could expect to make it, because Whittington, Stevens, Wilson, Walden, Knighton, they all pitted what will be now approximately the line 15 laps ago, while Muscarella, Duran, Hunter will be 14 laps ago. So it's really close between them. Obviously, those 2 laps make a huge difference, but generally speaking, they're on the same idea. They're on the same stretch. They're all going to be trying to go to the checkered flag without going down the lane again. They're about 11.5 seconds, almost 12 seconds off the lead, and that's fine. The leaders are going to lose approximately 30 to 35 seconds while stopping on pit road. So through the cycling process, they'll end up about 15 to 20 seconds behind this group, and they're just not really going to make up that time outright towards the leaders without any caution help. So it's really going to come down to how aggressive is anyone going to get in either line and get us in a situation where we see the yellow flag. A big reminder, the last, I would say, 2 yellow flags, I believe, in this series have come out because of a car stopping suddenly on off of the racetrack, but the caution being thrown anyways, late in the going in the race, that is. So it's still not out of the question where somebody in this race will either leave or for some reason have an issue. They'll slow down, park the car, I don't know, they could park it next to Lake Lloyd and the caution will still come out.
Yeah, we also saw Kansas Speedway. That was the first time it happened recently with Ethan Thompson for DEP Racing. And then Christian McCrelly came to a stop at the apron at Pocono not that long ago and also ignited the yellow flag. Now, this is one of those tracks where the apron is very much off the racing line, so we have seen cars stop on the apron before and not cause a yellow. But again, knowing how strung out this race is and knowing how wild the strategy has gone through either end of the spectrum, there could be someone who just says, I'm done racing tonight, tries to back it off, slow down, and come to a stop, and then all of a sudden it changes the entire profile of this race. And those who we think can make it on just 1 stop left, or those who already made their final stop theoretically and can make it to the checkered, that's all going to be thrown away. Everyone comes down pit road. You either top off on fuel or just try to secure yourself for a possible overtime attempt, and then just run it all the way to the end. And in this small sample size we had of drivers running up at the front and trying to be aggressive and racing against each other. We didn't see too much of side-by-side, or we didn't see a breath of three-wide action in the field unless drivers are just getting shuffled back through the pack. We only have seen a dominant inside line and at times a dominant high side push, but never a proper equal line distance between drivers, and we just haven't seen that kind of exciting race yet, although that very well could change. Maybe the mentality was it was super early on then. Now is go time no matter what with 25 laps to go. You're watching that 48 car. He runs 11th, and obviously most crucially, Francisco, you did touch on the fact that that is lead traffic. They are right behind, so a possibility for them to even save more gas if they want to secure an overtime attempt. And so they can make it to the end of this race. It's just a matter of how much they'll push, and of course, what's going to go down here between them if they decide to go against each other, if they decide to work in tandem. How many drivers will say me before we in a situation like this, now that it is coming down to crunch time and there are lots of points on the line here?
Well, they definitely are still saving fuel. The leaders, the top four on that last lap, they ran 48.1, whilst the leaders of this second group ran 48 or 49.7. So it's almost a second and a half a lap difference between your leaders and this second group. Remember, the leaders, yes, they've got a big gap. That's 16 seconds back to the second group that is attempting to make it to the end, but you're going to lose so much time between going down through pit road, stopping for service, and getting your tank full, or at least getting some fuel in the car, that by the time you exit and get back out to speed, they're going to be a tremendous distance behind again. You don't want to lose too much ground to the point where you're going to invite them back to the group, but at this point you just kind of have to ensure, okay, I'm close enough. Can I get to the end of the race? I think, and it's tough to say, if you sense a caution is going to come out before the checkered flag, honestly, I would probably push to where I'm one lap short, hoping that the caution flag would come out and try to get me those extra few laps. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. It depends how worried you are about this front group pitting and still catching up.
That has not been the mindset yet for Muscarella and the gang, that we understand could theoretically make it to the checkered flag, and knowing that they're saving now, possibly even further reassurance that they can make it to lap 125 without having to come down the extra time. Now for the rest of this group, mission is pull away as much as possible and then cut down pit road and try to just limit as much time you are down there. Again, it's a situation where they'll have to have that full splash, not anticipating anybody to take tires here at the Super Speedway Daytona, but of course that option is open to those. However, we know how aggressive SKM has been tonight. We know the placement they have put their cars in over the course of the race. Whether it's up in the lead or in a pack trying to work together on the high side, there is no better group to pull off an aggressive late stop strategy than these guys you're watching right here. And especially Justin Erb, off the back of a few solid races and a few nights where he had strong cars but things fizzled out or ended up in a crash late. I can immediately think to Michigan International Speedway, a race where Erb had been up at the front. SKM had few cars leading in the front of this field, several of them trading positions. Then Erb ended up in a crash first and foremost, and then secondly ended up on a hard hit to the outside wall that brought out the final yellow flag of the night. Erb is in a position where if he can maximize points in this spot and still be able to beat Alex Muscarella on strategy, he'll be the last driver pointed in to the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series chase, as that gap has thinned out considerably from Phoenix into tonight's race. It's a big, near 30-point swing it was in the battle for the cut line, and Erb is hoping that this strategy they are committed to is going to be the shining light at the end of what has been a very confusing tunnel to get through so far. 20 laps to go next time by.
And you saw Muscarella tried to make a move on his own, but didn't really have any help. I think that second group has picked up the pace just a little bit. They've now ran 49.1, so now they're 1 second a lap slower as opposed to a second and a half. They're 23 and 21 laps respectively on their stint. So I definitely think they've saved them a lot of fuel in this first portion, because we haven't really seen too many cars run that pace for this long. Sometimes it's been for a lap or two, and then they run into the 48s for a while. So I really do like their fuel situation, and I think it's like we mentioned, they're trying to get it to a point where they know they can get to the end and can push there onwards rather than trying to linger on until the very end and try to cut it close. It's almost like overshoot your goal, but know that you can take it with confidence to the very end, that it will be assured, rather than try to procrastinate a little bit and push it right up to the thin margin. So I really do like the idea here. Again, I toss it back to the leaders. What lap do they decide to pit on? It is almost, I can't figure out a way to describe how more guaranteed it is that they're going to bring it down pit road before the race is over. They're just that short on fuel. There's no way, and they're not exactly saving either. So they're pushing out there trying to get a gap. They've got about 21 seconds back to Charles Stevens. You think that with the pit stop that they're going to make, it's approximately 35 seconds that they'll lose. So they'll come out, if this keeps going, probably within about 10 seconds behind of this lead group. The question is, can they make up those 10 seconds over the course of the next 19 laps? It looks like that second group has also picked up the pace a little bit more. Now they're into 48.8.
Trying to push the issue by the end of this all. And remember when we saw the strategy unfold with everybody coming down pit road and the entire situation that happened at the end, the leaders had came down pit road in the regular season finale last year with 11 laps to go. We're at 18 this time by coming back to turn 1. So they theoretically, understanding that the gaps were different back then than they are right now, just in case of a whole different race and different types of drivers in it. But if you do try to reference that race from last year, it could be a possible benchmark. If you look at 11, 12 laps to go, give yourself enough of a buffer to where if you do have time to catch up to the field, you can do it confidently without making it a really close fight, and have a bit of wiggle room through the final 5 or 4 laps to be able to squeeze by, make a move for the win, and then just go for it to the checkered flag. It's that question of how late is too late before ultimately they just don't have enough time to cycle back to the front, and then it all becomes just a big wash in the effort that they have put in trying to make it to the checkered flag. Man, it's been interesting, Francisco, to just see they have touched the power, the weight, they have touched nearly everything in this next-gen car. The Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series admins have, in an attempt to make the racing better, in an attempt to make these races more interesting. And while we haven't had 3 and 4 wide action tonight, we've had an insane strategy race that is going to come down to the wire no matter what.
Let's see how this can continue to unfold. And a caution at any point will make this very interesting, especially with less laps remaining in the race, because you have to keep in mind, the group that is saving, they're saving to the checkered flag. I don't think they're exactly having overtime in mind, but the earlier caution comes out, you save that fuel, you might be able to guarantee an overtime, and if the cautions then start to pile up, well, that's even better of an opportunity. So right now, as the laps continue to wind down and we get closer to lap 125, I get concerned for both sides now in case of that yellow coming out, because if it comes out inside 5 laps to go, I expect the entire field to enter pit road and take some sort of service, unless those cars on the left have already pitted by then, in which case, honestly, stay out, especially if they don't forget to turn off auto fuel and give themselves the extra buffer. You're already going to be stopped anyways. You already have good pace, and they're going to be going a little bit slower than you guys anyways. Come down, give yourself enough for overtime, at least 1 or 2 attempts, and then start making up that gap. They're probably going to have the time to do so, especially if they don't back it down, which it appears as though they might have. They're running 48.5s that last lap, and then that second group on the right side of the screen running 48.9. So that advantage that they were building has decreased by almost a second.
Trying what they can to just make it to the checkered flag. A barn burner here in Daytona. 14 laps to go when the leaders see the start-finish line once again. Warren Kyle Keith on the braking of the plane for 45 laps led tonight, with his teammate Justin Erb just giving him every bit of his pushing through every one of these Daytona corners as they come off the final stretch and come down to the 18 degrees of tri-oval banking and get to the start-finish line. And we have seen winners at Talladega and Daytona this season not lead as much laps as we've seen Parker Bland do, Steven Stempien do, and even Warren Kyle Keith do at the front of this field. The average between the 2 winners at Daytona and Talladega this season, They've led a combined average of 12.5 laps, and that was swung in the exact heavier margin by Brandon Banks, who led 23 in the season opener here at Daytona to win his first and only race of the year so far. But then Jamal Pugh only led 2 laps as he took the lead in the final stretch with his teammate behind him and took the stunner victory at Talladega Superspeedway. It may appear, though, that one of the more dominant drivers of the night can walk away with a checkered flag and some more points to boost their resume. Going into the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series chase later on this season, it is 13 laps to go. Still no signs of the leaders on pit road, and all the way back by at least 21.5 seconds is the second group.
I think we have some pit stop calls being made. Oh, it's the second group that's pitting.
Well, here they come. They are in, so they cannot guarantee a trip to the end of this race, and that is led by Jesse Whittington and a few of his teammates. So they are in as well. Alex Muscarella and the group that we know for the most part can make it into the end. They will stay out, but it is Whittington, Walden, Wilson, Stubblefield, and a few others that have taken down pit road with 13 laps to go. Quick stop and out and away for Stevens, Walden, and Wilson. They'll assume to get back in the group and try to push it as hard as they can. But how far can the leaders go? They just got around to turn 1, and they're still out there with 12 laps to go.
And right now is when they don't want the caution, because they're a lap down now. They have to wait until the leaders decide to bring it down the lane, cycle back out to the top. But look how big this group here right here is. You got Warren Keith leading. They've got the 20 of Justin Urban behind them, a bunch of lap cars, which make this pack a lot bigger than what it normally would be. And I've been hearing a couple of them saying that they're going to be pitting this time. So round around that same lap number as last year, maybe by a lap, Warren Keith and the rest of this lead car group is going to be dailing it down pit road. And there they go. Into the pit lane come the race leaders. We'll see if they get through cleanly. And that should hand the lead off to David Duran, Cedric Hunter, and Alex Muscarella. Can they make it an additional 12 laps?
That's the exact marker, 12 to 11 laps to go. Left side of your screen, leaders are in. Right side of your screen, the rest of them that are going to hold out hope. They're coming down pit road as well. Some extra cars in there as well. That means
that's
Hunter
David Duran
and Alex Muscarella will assume position at the front, and there may be more changes. Hunter to the outside, cars to the bottom as the rest of the group comes off pit road to turn 1.
And Hunter with a smart move, he gets behind Steven Stempien to try and get a draft off of the 88 machine. Remember, Stempien's a lap down in this race, but he pitted around the same marker, in fact, a lap later. So they're trying to see if they can manipulate the lap car of Stempien to try and get a little bit of extra fuel mileage. They're cycling to the front. Justin Erb, who's exiting the pit lane at the front of the lead group, is 13 seconds, and they're still getting up to speed, about 14 seconds now, behind this trio of cars. Can they make up all that time in the next 10 laps to try and catch up and win this race?
Well, right now, they do not have enough cars. They'll try to pick up some hope here with Kevin Roy, Charles Van Schaik, and Justin Erb. There's Daniel Holdcroft and Kyle Key slowing down. It'll be 5 cars starting from the 3rd place position, trying to track down 15.7 seconds to the top running 2 with 10 laps to go. It's going to be a stunner here in Daytona.
And they've caught up to Jesse Whittington, who I think may have had some sort of penalty on pit road with how far back he is now. But this gives Alex Muscarella a great chance to not have to lead the line and lead this race at the same time. Now he has a buffer. Stempien is his teammate. He can kind of act as a buffer against Cedric Hunter. So the 48, if this goes green to the end, not only can he keep saving any fuel that he may need, he's got some help from behind that will try to give him assistance from Cedric Hunter to begin with.
At Daytona and Talladega for Alex Muscarella, only one of those finishes were in the top 10. It was 8th back in July of 2025. The regular
Erb's coming
season
back down
finale.
lane.
There's Justin Erb. He's on pit road, so he cannot assure a run to the end. It slims down to 4. Charles Van Schaik, the new leader of the second group. They are still gaining on the front 2, 14.4 seconds. Do they have enough time?
Kenneth Erb had just pitted. I think he had a pit road speeding penalty on the exit of pit road, and that's why he's back in serving that penalty now.
Oh, that is huge for Herb. And again, a big swing in points. Remember, we talk about 6 between Muscarella and Herb going into tonight's race for the final spot in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series chase. For Herb, he's had the monumental gain throughout the night, but Muscarella has the strategy that could win this race. And now Herb stuck in traffic and stuck possibly a lap down or more without a chance to gain the SKM Lucky Dog if there is a yellow flag. 8 laps left from the World Center of Racing, gap down to 13.5 seconds to turn 1.
It's closing, and it's closing by almost a second a lap, but that's not going to be enough. It has to be almost 2 seconds a lap if they really want to catch up to this crew of cars. I think we've had a couple of calls for pit road. Couldn't quite make out the voice of who it is that said they were going to pit, but it's none of these 4. They continue to stay out there on the racetrack to take 7 laps to go. And again, we keep asking ourselves, how much fuel do they really have on board? They're still running 49.1, so they're clearly backing this pace down, trying to make sure that they have enough fuel. You look at Warren, Kyle, Keith, and all of these drivers, Kevin Roy, that are assured to go to the end at the cross the start finish line. That time,
49
slower.
They're slower.
So slower. Yeah.
And that could be either from organization. It doesn't look like they're saving. They pitted late enough so they can make it to the end, but is there just not enough speed from this quartet? There is damage, by the way. We haven't talked about much throughout the race, but the 2 Fords in the middle of this quartet, Warren Kyle Keith and Daniel Holdcroft, they both have damage. Keith has sustained most of this race with a bit of heavy rear end damage. We'll get a good look from the front end of Daniel Holdcroft's car as he runs a lap down. He's got front end nose damage, Holdcroft does, and there's the ticked in rear bumper of the 24 of Keith. So could that be an effect in the aerodynamic draft? This time by, they remain just a tad slower than those of the front, but it's much better this time.
I don't think the rear damage would play as big of a role as does the nose damage, but from my experience, if you have nose damage but you're pushing somebody and you have a car behind you, it's almost like it's not really there. You can certainly still push well and do good in the draft. However, if you're leading a line, that could be troublesome for the entire group, which luckily for them, at least that the 22 of Kevin Roy does appear to be clean, but they're still not really making any inroads. That last lap, they were pretty good, and now look at this. They have to move to the outside to get around traffic in front of them, and that's not for position. These are lap cars that they're working their way past right now, so that's going to hold them up a bit even more with 5 laps to go. It's still approximately 13.5 seconds.
Yeah, the good news is that they will have more cars, but there's the bad news is that they really had to lose time in order to potentially gain some more, and there is not much of this race that is left in the back pocket for these drivers that committed to the late race push strategy and coming down pit road the extra time. Out in front is Alex Muscarella in a pack of 5 with a few lap cars and tons of space between them and any other competitor on the racetrack. The gap is now under 13 seconds, but that may not be relevant at all. 4 laps to go for Muscarella this time through.
And how much does Cedric Hunter have in his car to jump out of line and try to make a move? Those are the only 2 cars on the lead lap in this group fighting for the win. The good thing, Muscarella has a car in front. He has a car behind. See Stempien trying to build a gap. And again, he's teammates with the 48, so he'll try to help his teammate get a win here, given the fact that Stempien's multiple laps down in this race. His priority is going to be helping this 48, so essentially Cedric Hunter is going to be working a 2-for-1. They're catching up to another lap car. I think they'll get there on this next lap at Alpha Turn 2. So we'll see how they navigate the lap car. But what can you do in Cedric Hunter's position? It's a tough one. And as soon as you maybe try to go full throttle and make a pass, you just get left out there as they start to push again.
There's also that situation of the driver who is right behind Hunter is Justin Hendry, who is fighting with Steven Stempien for what is the SKM Lucky Dog if the yellow does fly on the speedway. They're both 14th and 15th, so it will probably be assured that Hendry is going to help Hunter in his advances if he does try and make this push. But again, we mentioned that buffer in the middle between Muscarella and Hunter. That's the DTH teammate of Muscarella in Stempien. So you know the 88 car is going to make it as hard as physically possible for the 45 to make his way around and just try to help his teammate grab victory lane for the first time, not only this year, but for the first time in his Dropping the Hammah Cup Series career. Hendry fades outside. He goes back into the line. Only 5 miles separate these drivers from a race win. 2 laps to go on the Firecracker 312.
It just started the 40th lap of their stint. We saw them go about 42 earlier on. Can they match that in this stint? I think they will. And it's all about right now getting back to the white flag. They have about 9 seconds back to third place Kevin Roy. He will not catch up to this group unless they run out of fuel. So if you're Cedric Hunter, what are you doing? Are you talking to Justin Hendry, trying to orchestrate some kind of a plan to make a move here? You know the 88 is going to go with the 48 no matter what happens. And if you're asked Alex Muscarella, how do you defend this? Lap car in front, teammate behind you, neither for position. The guy you're racing with is 2 cars behind you, and nobody else inside this lead group of now 6 cars as they take the white flag is on the lead lap except for one. So Muscarella is in a really, really good position. Does he have the fuel, and can he defend any charge from Cedric Hunter, who appears to be backing up to build a run?
The decision is on the table. They add an extra car to this group. Justin Erb is trying to hang on to the draft behind Justin Hendry. Cedric Hunter, that pink Toyota Camry, trying to build a run down the Daytona super stretch, but the teammate of Muscarella and Steven Stepien is giving the push of
Here
his
comes
life,
Hunter,
trying to help Muscarella break through. Here comes Hunter, peek to the outside. Stepien tries to block. He can't get there. Here comes Hunter, running from the top side. Can they get there in enough time? There's the block. Down the back straightaway to turn 3. They touch. Muscarella and Hunter run to the line. 3 wide to the stripe. And Alex Muscarella, first-time race winner from Daytona.
What a job from Cedric Hunter to build that run with Justin Hendry to try and get up there. He had a few chances to make the move, but Muscarella played the defense exactly the way he had to. And with enough fuel, Alex Muscarella captures his first career Dropping the Hammah Cup Series win in flag-to-flag action at Daytona. Unbelievable stuff, Kenneth.
Can you believe that we went lap 1 to lap 125 without a single caution on the speedway? And after only picking up 2 career top 10s on super speedways prior to this moment, Alex Muscarella gets to soak this one all in. First career Dropping the Hammah Cup Series win at the World Center of Racing.
Another first-time winner this season. We've already had a few first-time winners this time around. Muscarella throws his name into that list. And he'll head off into the off week with some fabulous momentum. And he was a driver that was on the bubble, Kenneth. He was the last one in of the top 12. And I think he might be out of fuel with the way he's coasting out on the racetrack. That goes to show every drop mattered since the start of the race. He is out of fuel.
And Justin Erb will try to help him, push him back to the front straightaway, and to celebrate this moment. For the first time in his career, Alex Muscarella will visit Droppin' the Hammah victory lane, and does it in a strategy barn burner from Daytona. Lap 1 to 125 under green, and a fuel strategy call with 42 laps to go. That cements the first career win for this 48 car. Muscarella has been close several times, and he told us through the first Daytona race back in 2025, he knew it was going to be his. He lagged on the back straightaway. He spun around off the nose of the driver behind him, and those were his chances soured to win that moment in a night that was at the moment successful for him up to then. And tonight, to enjoy this win, outlasted the competition on fuel, made it to the end, and just has enough to barely burn it down. Alex Muscarella, the 7th different winner of 2026. So let's bring you tonight's unofficial results after 125 laps of the Firecracker 312 goes green from Daytona. Alex Muscarella, by 14/100ths of a second, is the race winner. His first career W, and the first time that Cedric Hunter does not see Dropping the Hammah victory lane for a third race. He tried to go for fourth in a row, but second will be good enough for the 45 tonight. Warren Kyle Keith in his strategy pushed all the way to the end, pitted with 12 laps to go, coming to 11 laps left, survives and still captures the podium finish after this is all said and done. Kevin Roy, the biggest mover of the night, from dead last to a top 4 finish for the 22 car, a huge moment for him. Charles Van Schaik in the 23 rounds out tonight's top 5. Zach Wilson in his first career dropping the Hammah Cup race. We join him, and he is 6th place at the end of this one. Chuck Stevens in 7th. Garrett Walden back in 8th. Casey Knighton in 9th. And David Duran, the rookie in the 98, rounds out tonight's top 10.
11th goes to Timothy Stubblefield in the 9 machine, with Kip Easley, who had a great run going, finishes in 12th. Last car on the lead lap, believe it or not, in 12th spot. Jesse Whittington finishes 13th, first car 1 lap down, with Justin Hendry in 14th. Steven Stempien finishes 15th. He looked like he had a fast car early on, with his teammate Stephen Harlow down in 16th. Parker Bland led probably one of the most laps in this race, but she rounds out in the 17th position. Daniel Holdcroft in 18th after their pit stop woes. Brad Fulham 19th. And James Kunkel rounds out the top 20.
Back in 21st, 2 laps down. That's Justin Erb. He played a part in that final lap and that run to the checkered flag. Dana Shepard also a pair of laps down in 22nd. Brandon Banks had a tough go around after the spin there entering pit road. He ends up 3 laps down in 23rd. Jamal Pugh was the final driver registered to finish this race, 123 laps behind. Jaden Porter registered for the session, put in no time in qualifying, but did not make it to the green flag. So he closes out tonight's coverage here from Daytona and the entire field that made it from start to finish. So as we welcome you in to tonight's KBRN post-race show, the night is all about Alex Muscarella, career win number 1 in his Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series run. And Alex, I don't know if you can believe it, but we couldn't believe that this race went all the way green from 1 to 125, but you in the back pocket with only a few others had the right strategy with 42 laps to go to make it to the end on fuel. How close was it, first of all, for you and the gang?
Oh, I crossed the line with a 1/10 of a gallon.
Oh, wow.
The pathetic thing I did at the start-finish line with all it had left.
Wow.
That is unbelievable, Alex. And we know, again, this race with the new power output, the weight, and everything involved with the setup involving this Firecracker 312, the challenge became very clear very early on. Wasn't entirely racy, but the strategy was all in mind. How did you find a way to snag the right laps to go to make it to the checkered, and what that strategy felt like all race long from your eye?
Well, I was a little upset, I'm not gonna lie. I pit with 3 laps in the tank in the first stint. And then I lost everybody. And then just under green, I got lucky. Everything got grouped back up together, and then I just tried not to go over 75%. I knew that once I looked at the lap split and how close everything was at the start of the race, that just saving fuel was going to be the way, and if you went hard, you were just going to shoot yourself in the foot.
So, Alex, we've talked about a lot of these Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series races that you had strong cars at the beginning, you had a chance to win late, and either you ended up in a crash or things just didn't fall in your favor. How does tonight feel? Understanding even with the strategy and all that had to go into trying to win this race, how is it feeling to be a Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series winner for the very first time here at Daytona?
Oh, I mean, I did my classic, just finally. That's all I said. Just put my head back, said finally into one. There's been so many races that I had a shot and just they went south. To win one that I didn't think I was gonna win is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Always love winning at Daytona. Daytona's by far one of the favorite tracks I got. And yeah, no, it's just good to win again. It's been a long time. I don't really run officials. Pretty much the only races I run on iRacing you guys see. So it's been a long time.
Well, glad that we got to witness this one here in the Firecracker 312. Alex, there's a double situation to this because you find yourself winning for the first time and Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season, and of course from your career over Season 1 and Season 2. But you came into tonight -6, or rather up 6 from the cut line on Justin Erb. How much more assured do you feel now that this one is in the back pocket? All those points are there as well. and you can try and carry that momentum through Sonoma and the rest of the regular season?
I mean, I gotta just have a collapse somewhere. I mean, realistically, I could just miss the race because of work. My work schedule's changed. That's why I missed Dega. So this was my first time in this package. I didn't practice it. I had about 40 minutes in the session before the race. So I mean, really, it just depends on if work cooperates with me for the rest of the year. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, Alex, a fun one here from Daytona, all about strategy, and you just managed to save enough gas for your first career drop in the Hammah Cup Series win. Anybody that you want to shout out or thank before we let you go and celebrate tonight from Daytona?
Well, as always, guys at DTH, right? Stampy sitting there, giving me the few extra pushes I needed at the end of the race, give me enough momentum. Steve-O just thugging it out every week, the best he can with us. Brad, who's been relatively new addition, he's been cool to have around. Obviously, my girlfriend for putting up with me dealing with this, with having to deal with angry babies at night while I'm sitting here trying to do this. So it's good stuff. And then of course you guys, as always, for putting on the show for us.
Well, Alex, we certainly appreciate the time. Want to extend our congratulations on your first career drop in the Hammah Cup Series win here in the Firecracker 312. Go on and celebrate. Have a wonderful and safe 4th of July weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time from Sonoma. But until then, congratulations on the win.
Thank you, guys.
Alex Muscarella tasting victory for the first time in his drop in the Hammah Cup career, and it happens here at the World Center of Racing. And on the other end of it, Francisco, the driver who was just a bit shy from getting his 4th race victory in a row, you're caught up with Cedric Hunter.
Well, Cedric, it was a really great race from you from the strategy standpoint. I know you came up just a little bit short there of the race win, but all in all, a great finish. How do you take on after a race like this tonight?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully we played the strategy just right. We saved the fuel that we had to, and I was kind of worried there with the guys that were going all out or had the alternate strategy, like Ward and stuff like that. I think that I was just telling him in the waiting room, but I think if they had committed to it from just the drop of the green, that honestly they would have probably won the race by a hefty margin. It was a lot faster, and they unfortunately just kind of went to that strategy a little too late in the race. But obviously, to our benefits, congrats. Congrats to the 48 there for the win, man. We gave it our best shot in the last quarter, and at least made it, the race somewhat exciting there to finish it off. So so fortunately we couldn't get number 4, but I guess we're just gonna have to start up a new streak here in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, in 2 weeks we do end up going to Sonoma. You've had some good pace on road course last season, but Sonoma different. We didn't race Sonoma last season. We had a few different road courses last time around, but no loss in Peel this time. How do you think you'll fare in that going on the road course next week?
Yeah, I was feeling pretty confident about possibly actually getting a win at Sonoma until my teammate decided to join the league like yesterday. So he forgot that this league starts off a little bit earlier, around 8:20. So he missed tonight's race as a rookie move. But I'm sure he'll show up to Sonoma, and Zach's really fast there. Just at the road courses, so I'm sure that he's going to be very competitive and more than likely get the win. But so I'm fingers crossed for a podium, and if we can luck our way to a win, then that works too. Um, and yeah, and then obviously there's a bunch of guys in the league that are really fast that I'm on the lookout for. But yeah, fingers crossed that we have them beat.
Going to be hoping for that as we move on next time. But obviously, it wouldn't be right if I didn't interview you here tonight and ask you, how are the vibes up there in Canada after today's successful victory in the round of 32?
Yeah, man, it feels great. We went from scoring our first points a couple weeks ago to getting our first win to now, going into the knockouts round and getting our first knockout. So it's a year of first for us here in Canada, and hopefully. Or I guess unluckily now we go into the next round, and I think it's Morocco or the
Or
Netherlands, I
Netherlands,
think.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we had a good run. We'll just rack them, and we'll go again 4 years from now. So I don't think we have anything for them, but we'll see.
You have to play the games at the end of the day. The good news
Yeah.
for you guys up there is Alfonso Davies appears to be back in action. So that could be a huge
Heck
lift
yeah.
for that Canadian team. So we wish you guys the best of luck. And before we let you go here from tonight's race, anybody want to give a shout out to that helps make this happen for you and the whole 45 team?
Yeah, man. Huge shout out to my wife and daughter. Huge shout out to you guys and the fans out there for tuning in, to the league admins and the drivers for putting all this on and having good races. Um, I think that this race would have probably been a little more exciting if obviously there's a couple cautions to mix up the start to just have it so everybody just had to go all out. But we came out on the right side of it, so and good stuff also to Muscarella there for the win. Congrats to him. I think long time coming. He's had a lot of good pace there this season and last. So congrats to him again for the win.
We appreciate the time you take with us, Cedric, on your Sunday nights. Congratulations on the podium effort. We hope to see you out there in 2 weeks at Sonoma. We know you don't celebrate the 4th of July, but cheers to the independence of England.
Oh man, we got July 1st on Wednesday is Canada Day, so yeah, for sure.
There you go.
We're gonna try and get hammered there. I took basically the rest of the week off after that, so it's gonna be a good time.
There we go. We'll take a cheers to that, Cedric. Congratulations.
I appreciate it, man. Have a good night.
Gonna have a day on Canada Day. Cedric Hunter is a second place finish tonight here from Daytona. Although it wasn't the 4th race victory in a row, still great points for the driver who is now right on the neck of Brandon Banks as we rate unofficial points results after Daytona is closed to see if there is a change of the guards of the driver who holds the top of the Drop in the Hammah world as of right now. We join 3rd place finisher Warren Kyle Keithan. I think immediately back to Iowa Speedway where it was a tire concern for you in a bulk of the field. You pitted late in the race. We weren't sure how you were going to come out of that. You ended up still with a top 10 and a solid points day. Tonight, it's almost the same with the late pit stop inside 11 laps to go, come back out and finish 3rd. But the big question there was, what was the plan? What were the discussions like with you and your team throughout the race on the pit stop strategy to try to make it to the end?
I don't know what we need to do at these plate races or whatever the hell we call it now, tapered spacer races, to not have stuff like that happen. Oh, so freaking frustrating. You race your heart out. You tell the whole team's agreeing agreement, we got to go. And you go, and it doesn't matter. Someone's still going to just sit in the back of that second train that you gap by almost 14 to 15 seconds, and they still make it. It's frustrating, but hell of a job. P3, that's good for us for the bracket challenge, good for points, but I don't know. This one's a little hard to not be mad at.
So we mentioned the aggression at the front, drivers kind of not willing, as we saw early on, to play 2 wide, 3 wide. It seemed like you and the SKM drivers had it into mind to be aggressive from note 1 in this Daytona race. What was that mindset going in on seeing the landscape and trying to push as hard as possible to gain track position early?
Well, the mindset was to just go. But then everyone decided to just 2013 500 it, and you couldn't go because no one wanted to lose their spot in line, which at the end of the day, that's their prerogative. They can do what they want. But, if no one's going to do anything, there's no point of going, and that's when the whole field just gets single file. But we had a plan to just go. Like we did Talladega earlier in the season. Just, if everyone's going to feel safe, that's fine. But just the way the pack was just in all single file, even if you got out of line and started pushing, you just couldn't make it up because everyone was just kind of feel saving and going. So, I don't know. It's just we'll have to go back, regroup, think about it as a team, and just next time, do we just say screw everyone single file and just try to make the top side work in that first run and just make it work and try to see if we can eliminate that pit stop sooner? Or do we just decide to pace around on 995 and rush hour traffic for the whole race and do this again for Talladega? We'll just have to figure it out.
Well, it'll be a while till we get another super speedway affair in that Chase Talladega race, but a few weeks from now, going road course racing for the only time this year in wine country in Sonoma, California. Your thoughts on that track and trying to keep the consistent level of podiums going, your second consecutive top 3 here tonight?
Yeah, that'll be fun. Sonoma's a great track. I don't like the new wall they have in the the hairpin, but but it's a fun track. You know, it's a track where you can actually push it. You can go hard all you want and not have to worry about fuel saving in that race. But we have extra power, thanks to the real world actually having power at that track. So it's actually going to be actually a pretty enjoyable race to watch, just because of tire saving and you know what happens there. So it's gonna be a fun one. Wine Country is always a blast, and then we'll just regroup and get ready to go for some of these races. I think after next week it's nonstop all the way to Charlotte. I think that's we did the math. That's from like driving from Miami to Seattle in one go. So we got a cross country trip to go in the season, and it all starts in Wine Country.
We're gonna have to boot up the American Truck Simulator and just try to reenact that drive from Daytona Beach down to Sonoma, and then of course all across through the schedule as the regular season comes to a close. But Warren, as we continue this season, and after a third place finish tonight in the Firecracker 312, anybody that you want to give a shout out to or thank for tonight?
Yeah, like thank everyone at SCAM, Daniel, Justin, Casey, James, Parker, Kevin. You know, we had the winning strategy, just didn't work out. So thank you all for that. I'd like to thank everyone at Bass Pro Shops St. Augustine for being on the car. Nice little patriotic theme this weekend. Yeah, just thank you guys for broadcasting every week. It's a shame that the last 2 weeks have been so lackluster, but that's one of the benefits of this league, I guess you could say, is we're good enough. We don't have to have any cautions or anything like that. So we'll go into Sonoma and go try to get a W there, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, Warren, as always, great to talk to you. Appreciate the time we get to spend talking to you after these races. Congratulations on the third place finish, and we'll see you at Sonoma in a pair of weeks. Hope you have a great July 4th weekend. Should be fun.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Warren Kyle Keith, back-to-back podium finishes. He finished second in our last race at Avondale, Arizona, trying to keep the West Coast streak going if he can finish well at the road course at Sonoma in 2 weeks' time. So after Daytona, this officially kicks off the brand new 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series in-season challenge. And here's the field as they come off of Daytona, and one more round to go in this opening group round. So the highest point total in these first two races at Daytona and the road course in 2 weeks' time will determine who advances to the next pair of races at Indy and New Hampshire. And then from there, highest finisher gets to move on from Nashville and then to the finale, which will close out the regular season as well. So we won't also decide the 12 that get into the chase. We'll decide the driver that wins the in-season challenge. $100 to the winner, $50 to the driver who comes up second in that final round. So whether you are the winner or you're that runner-up at Richmond, should still be some money in the bank by the end of it all. And it's going to be very exciting. And to see these groups, especially with Warren at the top left in his respective group, he should be the leader there. Cedric Hunter in the bottom left group will be the leader there. Alex Muscarella will be the leader of his group. All of the drivers coming together in-season tournament while the chase run goes on. With Sonoma up next as a road course wildcard, Francisco, any thoughts on how that could shake up the season as well?
Well, the road course is usually a wild card when it comes to any series for that matter. Usually, you obviously don't have any cautions come out in those kind of races, which that reminded me when Warren said that we had back-to-back races with no caution flags in any amount. So Sonoma will automatically be that third race in a row without a caution flag. So we've had a good streak of just green flag racing here in the month of June. So shout out to the field on making that happen. But we'll see how we get to Sonoma, how all those things shake out. We saw Cedric Hunter have good runs in the road courses last season. Lawson Peel, not in the series anymore, who was definitely the runaway favorite in those races. He would start at the back and still end up putting on a good gap by the time the checkered flag waves. I don't know, maybe I make an appearance. We'll just have to see when we arrive there on July 12th. It should be a good time though, Kenneth.
We're just going to keep teasing some of those part-time starts. We know you want to race earlier this season in Kentucky, so I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? There's still a lot that can happen between now and then, but I would like to get on the racetrack again, especially a road course. I'm just not a huge fan of Sonoma personally.
Well, regardless, it is going to be a beautiful Sonoma, California racetrack, one of those refreshed venues on the sim. That'll come your way in about 2 weeks' time. We'll take the next Sunday off for July 4th weekend, have the drivers rest up, recharge, and get back to racing action from the only road course left and right track of the season. Join us in Sonoma, California. That's once again July 12th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. All of the coverage of the 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season can be found right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. That'll do it for us in this coverage of the Firecracker 312 from the World Center of Racing. Want to give a big shout out to all those at the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. For Steven Stepien, Warren Kyle Keith, Richard Swavely, the entire admin group that makes this series possible each and every Sunday. And on behalf of all of the wonderful people at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Byer, Keelan Belsha, Nate Polite, Eli Comerford, Mikey Neal, so many more, and my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Daytona Beach. We're at the top of the Droppin the Hammah Cup world, a brand new race winner, Alex Mascherano, a winner for the first time.